Chapter 521, Taking Action. The legendary battle pet warriors were irritated by Su Ping's words. How bold and audacious of him to kill Legend Abyssal Ocean in front of us. The more shocking part of that incident was that, although Su Ping evidently was not a peer at the legendary rank, he had been able to kill a senior legendary battle pet warrior. How terrifying that was. The world would only see the emergence of a fate challenger every few hundred years, but this fate challenger seemed to be more intimidating than those in the past. In a best-case scenario, a fate challenger would have the strength to contend against a legendary battle pet warrior, but Su Ping had just killed one. It could be argued that Legend Abyssal Ocean was caught off guard. Still, his demise was beyond comprehension. Mr. Su. Zai Jinshui and Qin Duhuang trembled. Su Ping raised an astral shield so blood would not spill over to him, but the blood did stain Qin Duhuang and Zai Jinshui. They could still feel the warmth of the blood that gushed out from a legendary battle pet warrior. That was the tower. It was the place where the legendary battle pet warriors gathered. Su Ping had just killed one of them in public. It was not going to end well. Zai Jinshui's heart was racing, and his mind was blank. He was unable to utter a single word due to fear. Qin Duhuang was ghastly pale as well. Even though he was at the legendary rank and he had become a prouder man, he knew when to be smart. He was nothing compared to the other legendary battle pet warriors who were at the tower. Therefore, he knew he had to endure the humiliation. It never occurred to him that Su Ping would go ahead and finish one of the legendary battle pet warriors. How insane. Su Ping, you. Boom. Legend North King suddenly stood up and glared at him. Legend Abyssal Ocean was a senior. The old man from the Qin family couldn't compare with him. How dare Su Ping end the life of a legendary battle pet warrior, and in the tower of all places? How outrageous. Who the heck are you? You will be punished with death. Another legendary battle pet warrior stood up. His golden hair and blue eyes were an indication that he wasn't a local. He, like Legend North King, was also at the void state. He insulted us in public. His entire family should be eliminated. Another old legendary battle pet warrior added coldly. He eyed Su Ping as if the latter were a dead man walking. He had to confess that Su Ping's strength was amazing. That being said, he could not be forgiven after he had humiliated them. Even worse, Su Ping was not at the legendary rank and still he acted so boldly. If and when he was at the legendary rank, wouldn't he make all of them kneel before him? My entire family. Su Ping turned to see that old man. The darkness in his otherwise emotionless eyes could swallow the light. Unlike Qin Duhuang and Mu Beihai and the other family heads, he didn't have an extended family. He just had his parents and his younger sister. They meant the world to him. Old dog, why don't you go ahead and try that? Su Ping gazed at him. Agitated, the old man screamed. What did you just say? I am more than enough to be your great-grandpa. Then you are an old dog that has been living longer than necessary, Su Ping replied coldly. Courting death. That old legendary battle pet warrior stood up and unleashed his rich astral powers. He, too, was close to the peak of the ocean state, like Legend Abyssal Ocean. Boom, boom. Two swirls appeared behind him, and from them crawled out two barbaric beast kings. The huge beast kings startled even the titled rank servants. They became sick with worry, afraid that they could get hurt in the upcoming fight. When legendary battle pet warriors fought, they would be like puny insects that could be stomped to death. Take this, the old man shouted. He had to fight or he would be losing his dignity after Su Ping had insulted him in public. Su Ping killed Legend Abyssal Ocean, but the old man was sure that it had happened because of the latter being caught off guard. On the contrary, the old man was ready to go all out. The two beast kings landed on the ground and roared as they dashed toward Su Ping. Su Ping eyed them indifferently. A swirl appeared behind him as well. He summoned the dark dragon hound. Kill them, Su Ping ordered. The look in the dark dragon hound's eyes turned violent. It began to use skills that belonged to the Heaven Expansion Dragons as it made its way to the two Beast Kings. Soon after, the Dark Dragon Hound pinned one of the Beast Kings to the ground. The latter began to worry. The other Beast King arrived and distracted the Dark Dragon Hound from the side. The Dark Dragon Hound had no other choice but to fight the two Beast Kings at the same time. Su Ping didn't worry. He was familiar with Beast Kings, and those two were just so-so. He was able to tell that the Dark Dragon Hound was more than capable of containing both of them. It was just a matter of time. Su Ping looked into the crowd and found Legend North King. "North King," he shouted. "Yes." Since the old man had begun to fight, Legend North King didn't join because that would reflect poorly on him. "During the Supremacy League, you told me that you were looking for legendary battle pet warriors who had yet to register. You told me that the deep caves needed them. Now, answer this question. What are you doing here?" Legend North King sulked. "We don't need to answer any of your questions." "Is that so?" Su Ping went on. "When tens of millions of people were waiting for those honorable legendary battle pet warriors to come and save them, what were you doing? Could you not spare half a day?" "How dare you?" The other legendary battle pet warrior jumped in. "How can you compare the lives of tens of millions to the lives of legendary battle pet warriors? Can one of them become a legendary battle pet warrior? You must know that the odds of reaching the legendary rank are really small. Do you honestly think that we should take risks just for the sake of some ordinary people?" Su Ping could not even believe that statement. All of a sudden, the coldness and anger disappeared in his eyes. "So this is how you're doing the calculation," he whispered to himself and laughed. "Don't waste time, prepare to die." The old man stood up straighter. Feathers grew on his arms and scales on his face. It was evident that he had merged with his pet. The merger increased his strength to the peak of the ocean state. Su Ping's laughing stopped. "Go to hell," he cried. Boom! The air behind him twisted, and the sunlight was swallowed by the many demons and fiends that were appearing in his force field. Many vicious and hellish figures had begun to emerge in that darkness. Force field. In the meantime, a small swirl appeared as well. A white object dashed out. White bones grew out on Su Ping's skin in the next second. Su Ping clenched his fist and punched at the old man that was dashing toward him. In the distance, some legendary battle pet warriors at the Void State shouted in fright the moment that Su Ping was covered by the white bones. God no. All of them could sense the danger and killing intent coming out from Su Ping. Chapter 522, Shatter the Heavens. "Stop!" A legendary battle pet warrior at the Void State stood up. He pushed the air across the distance to hinder Su Ping and save the old man. Boom tilde tilde. The surging air crushed Su Ping like a falling mountain, but that overwhelming surge of air was soon disrupted by the force surrounding Su Ping. He threw a punch at the old man with his bone-covered hand, which was as glaring as the sun. The old man stared with eyes wide open. There was nothing left in the world for him to see. Nothing except for the approaching golden fist. The punch had yet to land on him, but the wind that had been stirred up was enough to blow away his soul. No, no way. The old man shuddered in fear. He was no longer that agitated man. Only a scared man remained. He couldn't even begin to imagine how such strength could be wielded by a puny human being who wasn't even at the legendary rank. Defense. In that critical moment, the only thing he could think of was to save his life. He instantly set up many defensive barriers and armors. The most noticeable of them all was a virtual image of a golden toad. It was a legendary skill that could not only withstand physical attacks, but also energy attacks and poisons. That was the skill which allowed him to have his way, even during fierce battles. Su Ping's hand bumped into the virtual toad. The toad's head caved in all of a sudden, before it reached its limit and then exploded. Boom! Su Ping's hand was still pressing forward. The many other barriers and armors behind the virtual toad gave in and cracked, one by one. Some strange barriers came out when his hand was about to land on the old man's chest, and then more virtual figures appeared to protect the old man from the strike. And yet, the virtual figures lasted for less than 0.1 seconds before they broke, and Su Ping cleanly landed a punch on the old man's chest. The old man arched his back. His eyes popped out, making the fear and surprise in his eyes even more prominent. I couldn't stop the punch even after using all of my defensive skills. He had brought out all the armors and barriers he had collected over the years. Any one of them was sturdy enough to fend the strike from a void state being. Banged! Like a balloon, the legendary ranked old man burst open, turning into a mist of blood in the air. The wind blew the mist away as soon as the blood mist came into being. Only scattered objects remained. Some with better sight could already see that those things were the old man's fingers, teeth, knees, and other body parts. That old man was punched to death, even while being fully prepared. The legendary battle pet warriors who had at first viewed Su Ping with contempt were frightened at the moment, appalled, even. Were we wrong about Su Ping, or are we just having a nightmare? Could this guy be, in fact, a legendary battle pet warrior? Legend North King was the most startled of all. He had met Su Ping at the Supremacy League, where the latter had already demonstrated his ability to defeat legendary battle pet warriors. But he didn't think much of it because that old man of the Qing family was a loser who merely had one beast king. He wasn't nearly as good as the old man who had just passed away. It was also important to consider that Su Ping's fight at the Supremacy League had not been as easy as at that time. One punch. That day, with one punch, Su Ping had finished that old legendary battle pet warrior. Legend North King was able to tell that Su Ping's punch was even more threatening than before. This young man has grown up too fast, too fast. Ah, a titled battle pet warrior screamed because a broken hand had fallen into his arms. Some teeth still tainted with blood fell onto the heads of another one, scaring the wits out of him. When the old legendary battle pet warrior died, the pet he had merged with died as well. As such, the pet's body parts came down along with the rain of remains. The two beast kings that the dark dragon hound had been battling against came to a brief stop as the contract broke. Taking that chance, the dark dragon hound snapped the neck of one of the beast kings and then pounced onto the other one, finishing the latter quickly. Soon, the two beast kings were lying in a pool of blood. The pungent smell of blood pervaded the air. No one said anything. The legendary battle pet warriors eyed Su Ping with astonishment. They had just been angry when Su Ping killed Legend Abyssal Ocean without warning. Angry because Su Ping had dared to harm a legendary battle pet warrior. But at the moment, anger had given way to panic. In a face-to-face battle, Su Ping had still been able to kill a legendary battle pet warrior within one move, and they didn't have to check to know that Su Ping had merged with his pet. Is Su Ping not at the legendary rank? Of course he is. However, the young man must have used some secret ways to fool their perception and hide his strength. That was the only plausible explanation, because their perception told him that Su Ping was at the 7th rank according to their perception. It was ridiculous. Zai Jinshui and Qin Duwang stared at Su Ping in disbelief. They both knew that he had defeated the otherworld Heavenly King, but they weren't there to see with their own eyes. They didn't know that Su Ping's strength had developed to such a state. This was how Su Ping was able to defeat the otherworld Heavenly King. The silence lasted for half a minute this time. A young-looking man stood up with a gloomy expression. He was the one who had tried to stop Su Ping just then. However, his attempt had failed. Given how fast Su Ping had killed the old man, the young man was convinced that Su Ping was at the void state. Who are you really? You must have been at the legendary rank for quite some time. It wouldn't have taken long for us to find out. Are you really from the blue planet? The young man asked with a wary look. His words reminded the other legendary battle pet warriors. Indeed, they had never heard about this person. It would be hard for him to stay unnoticed for long after reaching the legendary rank. Some of them were hiding, like the old man of the Qing family. Still, this would involve keeping activities to a minimum, including cultivation. As a result, People like the old man from the Qing family would have weak powers, even at the legendary rank. They would only be able to defeat those at the titled rank, and not their peers who cultivated normally. But Su Ping was not like that old man of the Qing family. They had not heard about him, but he had managed to stun them all. It would be understandable if he were from another place. That other place would mean the Interstellar Federation. The legendary rank battle pet warriors seemed fearful upon thinking about this possibility. Legendary battle pet warriors weren't valued in the Interstellar Federation. If Su Ping originated from there, he surely had some strong connections that they couldn't mess with. That being said, the blue planet also fell into the Interstellar Federation's jurisdiction, since it was also its point of origin. They could report the wrongdoing to the Interstellar Federation and ask them to send someone to discipline him. Who told you that I was at the legendary rank? Su Ping glared at the young man. As for the other question, you don't deserve to know the answer. The wild beasts are running loose out there, and you're still in the mood to amuse yourselves here, instead of going to hunt them down to clean up the barren area. You ignored the pleas to save the lives of tens of millions. Since the tower is not set up to protect the vulnerable, you will no longer receive money and respect from the vulnerable. Su Ping turned to Zai Jinshui. Mayor, I will be the one protecting the Longjiang base city from now on. Do not waste your money on these cowards. You! Some legendary battle pet warriors' faces turned crimson with anger. However, Su Ping had killed 2 of them in a row. Both had been done with a single move. Some of the Ocean State warriors didn't even dare to argue, although they were livid with rage. Some of those at the Void State were flushed with agitation. Su Ping's statement had cast a glint of doubt in them. It was evident that Su Ping was from the Blue Planet and he loved his base city dearly, which was why he went to the tower to create a scene, all for the sake of that base city. His actions wouldn't have been worthwhile if he weren't from the Blue Planet. Are you saying that you're not at the legendary rank? The young one asked again. Are you trying to say that you're a noble one at the star rank? The other legendary battle pet warrior's pupils contracted wildly. Such an existence was not among them, but the name alone carried an overwhelming power. A noble at the star rank. The star rank was a step higher than the legendary rank, an incredible tier. Those who were at the star rank would be esteemed even in the Interstellar Federation. If that were the case, then killing a beast like the Otherworld Heavenly King would be a piece of cake. None of your business. Su Ping glared at him. He never did anything to conceal his strength. All those people could sense it, they just wouldn't believe it. Su Ping's contempt irked the young man. Furiously, he cried, "Don't you know that the tower is heaven for the Blue Planet? You killed 2 legendary battle pet warriors today. I suggest you improve your attitude or you'll find death soon enough." Death? Su Ping sneered. By whom? You. If this is the heaven of the Blue Planet, then I will shatter the heaven today. Outrageous. You cannot challenge the entire tower, even if you were at the Void State. The legendary battle pet warriors were boiling with anger. Su Ping's remarks were like slaps right on their faces. Su Ping wore a sarcastic grin. He felt sorry for them. He could tell that, while all those legendary battle pet warriors were accusing him and shouting madly, none of them were willing to step up. They were all waiting for others to take the lead. Not only could the general public act cowardly, the powerful ones could be cowards as well. Cowards? Su Ping's disappointment was just as strong as his anger. Legendary battle pet warriors were supposed to be the rare talents, but they turned out to be spineless people clinging to life instead of challenging death. Was this how mankind's most powerful should be? I'm not interested in challenging you, and you're not worth my while, Su Ping mumbled. He had lost interest. He gazed at Legend Pluto. I'm here to ask for the herb. I heard you had the soul nurturer and I want that. Name your price. You can sell it to me or you can give it to me for free. Your choice. Legend Pluto was also at the Void State and he hailed from the Nordic region. He, too, was hopping mad because of Su Ping's attitude. Even so, he was aware that this person was not to be underestimated. He had seen how Su Ping stopped the young legendary battle pet warrior. As far as Legend Pluto could tell, Su Ping was also at the void state, and he wasn't sure if he could defeat the latter. "You want my soul nurturer?" The sudden change of subject took Legend Pluto off guard. He also sensed that the other legendary battle pet warriors were turning their focus to him. "I do have it, but I'm not going to sell it to you, nor would I give it to you for free. Your demise is already determined. Do you honestly think you can leave the tower after committing murder? How hilarious." "What?" The fatting killing intent rose again. "Have you thought it through?" He glared at Legend Pluto. "What, do you want to fight me?" Legend Pluto raised his eyebrows. He wasn't sure if he could crush Su Ping, but he wasn't afraid of him. Besides, his peers were there. Once he injured Su Ping, the others would spring up and join in. "Since you are not giving it to me, then you don't need to stay alive." Su Ping enunciated each word. The still force field suddenly began to spin, and a glint of violence rose from his eyes. Boom! A stream of energy burst out from Su Ping, creating a turbulence. In the next second, Su Ping strode toward Legend Pluto, who was still seated. Legend Pluto was taken aback by Su Ping's sudden move. Frightened by his resolve, Legend Pluto didn't hesitate to summon his battle pet. 9 swirls opened up at the same time. 9 Beast Kings emerged. 3 of the Beast Kings had already reached the void state. There was a Beast King that looked like a mass of tumbling black fog without a tangible body. The Beast King murmured and then seeped into Legend Pluto. "Master." Soon, 2 beams of darkness oozed out from Legend Pluto's eyes. There was something wickedly strange about him, and his skin became so pale that he looked like a dead man. Behind him was his force field, which displayed an ocean of blood. Many corpses floated in the ocean of blood, which produced a horrifying view. Space of slaughter. Legend Pluto shouted. His voice sounded different. It seemed that there was another voice layered behind his voice. Darkness had swallowed all the light around them, seemingly about to eat Su Ping up. "I will show you the authentic world of the dead." Legend Pluto wore a cold look. The ocean of blood was tumbling, emitting a foul smell that began to spread across the dark area. Chapter 523, Mountain Split. All senses were cut off in that space of slaughter, a place constituted by nothing but darkness. Not even pain could be felt. You wouldn't even know if you were being attacked. As Legend Pluto's force field spun, blood and a foul smell continued to assault Su Ping, who was inside. He felt like he was submerged in blood. "Well, I missed that feeling." Su Ping felt his eyes were turning red as he took in the smell of blood. He moved his eyeballs in the darkness as if looking around. "What?" Legend Pluto stopped in his tracks when he was just about to strike. He felt chills deep in his heart. That space of slaughter one he was so familiar with was hiding a monster he could not see. Legend Pluto immediately looked into the space of slaughter. He had a clear view since it was his domain. Soon after, he found that Su Ping was looking right at him with his blood-red eyes. "He's able to see me." Legend Pluto was filled with trepidation. Right then, bolts of lightning flashed around Su Ping. A loud noise resounded in that quiet, dark space. Su Ping turned into a bolt of lightning that charged toward the legendary warrior. Legend Pluto was no longer wondering about it. Su Ping was able to feel him. Of course, he didn't have the luxury of time to prolong this contemplation, because Su Ping was moving simply too fast. Ghost blood corpses. Legend Pluto resorted to a legendary skill that was able to produce horrors. Ghosts wailed in the space of slaughter. Behind this senior rose a huge shadow. In the meantime, his colorless skin began to take on a red color. His completely black eyes, including the sclera, glimmered with a red glow. Some strange grains covered him, accentuating his gloomy and cold aura. Boom! Legend Pluto turned into a blood corpse. He growled and got ready for Su Ping's strike. The entire space of slaughter shook violently. Once a muffled sound was heard, the space of darkness was torn apart. The glaring virtual fist was about to topple the entire Nightfall Mountain. Boom! The air was rippling and the mountain was shaking. Legend Pluto violently smashed into the ground, creating a cave due to the sheer force. All the legendary battle pet warriors on the mountain were panic-stricken. They saw how Legend Pluto took action out of anger. He had merged with his most powerful pet and built up the space of slaughter which had made him famous. The space of slaughter could not only isolate Su Ping's senses, but also from those outside, except for the caster, Legend Pluto. The legendary battle pet warriors saw space being torn apart and Legend Pluto flying out from it, even before they could get an idea of the situation inside. Space was cracked. So quickly, it couldn't have happened. Legend Pluto was at the void state. Not even an enemy of the same rank could have defeated him so. The other legendary battle pet warriors, including Legend North King, stared with utter disbelief. Su Ping was standing in the air, like the god of all that was evil, and that pair of blood-red eyes could swallow every living being in the world. He was able to make their blood curdle. How many killings did he go through to become like this? Legend North King was the most stunned of all. Su Ping wasn't like that at the Supremacy League. How could he have become such a fiend in a couple of days? No one was able to progress that fast. The Ocean State battle pet warriors were too astonished to speak. They could no longer belittle that young man here. He was simply much more powerful than they were. No wonder the previous two legendary battle pet warriors had died within a single move. That young man was a demon in human skin. He had to be at the void state. Even at the peak of the void state. How scary. They had never heard of such a man before. He had risen to prominence, seemingly getting out from nowhere. Slap. Legend Pluto crawled out from the rubble and got out from the pit on the ground. His chest had caved in. Blood of a dark purple color was coming out from his mouth and nose. He wasn't entirely a human right then. The bodily structures have changed. He should be regarded as a new kind of existence. Again, his embarrassed state had yet again transfixed others. UHMPH. Legend Pluto felt he had become numb after experiencing that much pain. The bones in his chest broke. He glared at Su Ping, who was in the sky, in disbelief and rage. The senior thought death was knocking on his door. The guy was a monster. Su Ping looked down on Legend Pluto coldly. He summoned the dark dragon hound back in case other legendary battle pet warriors would sneak up on his pet while he fought them. While the dark dragon hound was unusually strong, it was merely at the ocean state, but there were 5 legendary battle pet warriors at the void state. Of all the legendary battle pet warriors at the void state, you are the weakest one, Su Ping said with contempt. Give me what I am asking for and I will spare you a life. Legend Pluto became red in the face from anger and quaked with rage. I'm the weakest of all the legendary battle pet warriors at the void state. Seriously? Of all the legendary battle pet warriors at the void state present, he was one of the 3 most powerful ones. The other legendary battle pet warriors at the void state weren't any more pleased to hear that. 2 of them were weaker than him. Su Ping was shamming Legend Pluto, so he was shamming them as well. Arrogant. Su Ping's words echoed in the air. All the legendary battle pet warriors and the title-drank servants were able to feel how proud and arrogant the young man was. Upset as they were, ever since the horrifying strength of the young man, no one argued with him. He had defeated Legend Pluto. He would enjoy such a high status. Unfortunately, Su Ping had chosen to be on the bad side of the tower. The legendary and titled battle pet warriors would not willingly decipher that young man. Why was he doing that, just for people of one base city? Was it all worthwhile? That was the tower, for crying out loud, the most powerful organization of the blue planet. He had not only ruined his future, he had also found himself an intimidating enemy by offending the tower, just for the sake of some puny and pitiful lives. So stupid. Everyone was thinking different things, but no one expressed it outright. You want my stuff? Keep dreaming. Legend Pluto bit his teeth. If he were to hand over whatever Su Ping was asking for after this beating, he would be so disgraced that he would never be able to stand up straight in front of his peers. Su Ping sneered. So, you will cry only when death is staring you in the face. Why don't you find out? Legend Pluto was not backing down. Humph! From a red lotus stood up a bold, old man. He was glaring like the sun and magnificent like the ocean. When people looked at him, they would feel that their minds and hearts had been purified. They would have a momentary peace and quietness. The tower is not a place for your wild actions. The old man glared at Su Ping. Behind him appeared his force field inside, which was a fairyland. With picturesque flowers and birds inside and the gurgling springs, the force field was extremely beautiful and peaceful. Legend Buddhist sound. The titled battle pet warriors trembled as they laid eyes on the old man. He was at the void state, and he was from the continent named the Southern Ocean, where the temperature was hot and the environment humid. People there worshipped many gods and deities. Each base city on that continent was named after a god or a deity. Su Ping gazed at the old man. He shared his view about that fairyland force field. People say that force fields are reflections of the mind. Your force field is peaceful and pure, but is reduced to nothing but a form. If you do have a kind heart, you wouldn't have just sat here, raising your wine cup and chatting merrily. You must know that more than one base city out there is under attack, Su Ping forcefully articulated. When the Longjiang base city was under attack, many from other base cities offered to help. Su Ping was reading the news at that time. He later learned that there were other base cities under attack at the same time, other than Longjiang base city. But those base cities didn't get much attention because no beast kings like the otherworld heavenly king were there. Kindness is a smart man's virtue. Willfully risking our lives is not kindness but foolishness, the bald, old man refuted. The deep caves need to be guarded at all times. Who can tell when someone over there will be sacrificed? We must keep our powers at all times. We do not have spare hands to help out those base cities. There are over 50 base cities in your subcontinent district. What is one less? Do you know what the big picture means? Do you want us to turn our back on all of mankind for the sake of one or two base cities? Hello. Su Ping burst out plasma laughter out of pure anger. Nicely put, turning back on all of mankind. You're comparing the lives of the world and that of one or two base cities, huh? The deep caves need people. Does that justify your sorry effort to cling to your life here? I seriously wonder about the real number of legendary battle pet warriors that are actually stationed at the deep caves. Huh? You are a legendary battle pet warrior, but you withheld that information and didn't come here to report for duty. What gives you the courage to talk about justice? The old man argued. You must have become a legendary battle pet warrior for 400 to 500 years to reach this stage. However, you've hidden this fact for hundreds of years to avoid your duty. Now your hometown is in danger and you decide to step out. Su Ping laughed at the sky. Who told you that I'm at the legendary rank? If I were, I would have slapped each one of you already. UHMPH. Nonsense. The old man flew into a rage. Su Ping's words had riled up the other legendary battle pet warriors again. Su Ping indeed had every right to be aggressive and arrogant, but this was over the line. Slapping each one. The legendary battle pet warriors. Legend North King fulminated. Su Ping, mind your attitude. This is the tower. Do not, for a second, think you can do whatever you want just because of your strength. You're at the void state. But do you know that there's the fate state? You'll be doomed when the fate state chief of the tower comes here. Su Ping grinned sarcastically. Of course I know there are people at the fate state in the tower, but no one can stop me when I want to leave. Why else do you think I am staying here, wasting time with you? Now, give me the herb I want and I will leave right away. I don't want to waste another second with the lot of you. From now on, the tower will no longer be part of my business. I have no use for the soul nurturer, but I will never give that to you. Legend North King laughed grimly. Wait for the chief to cut your head off. Su Ping was boiling with rage. Go to hell. Boom. A beam of glaring red light shone around Su Ping, and blood seeped out from the cracks of the white bones. He had already overexerted himself back when he was fighting the otherworld heavenly king, passing out from exhaustion later. He had already slept for 2 days but had not fully recovered. And yet, Su Ping didn't mind his tiredness. He burned his blood and turned that into energy. Roar! Suddenly, a dragon's roar sounded. The claps of thunder were the answer to the dragon's roar. Su Ping roared and turned into a bolt of lightning, exuding a shocking coercion, like a meteorite that was pressing against the blue planet. With divine energy erupting from his fist, he slammed down on Legend Pluto into the ground. That punch was like a meteorite, like a comet falling, invincible. The sneer froze on Legend Pluto's face. Having reached the void state, he had already started to learn how to manipulate space. He was able to see how the void was collapsing under Su Ping's punch. Space would cave in wherever his fist passed, leaving behind some dark traces. No, this cannot be. Legend Pluto was panic-stricken. He could barely bat his eyes. He shouted wildly and summoned his beast kings to protect him. He unleashed many legendary defensive skills, one after another. However, that invincible fist had crushed all of the barriers, and armor formed with legendary skills. It was just as if Legend Pluto would have painted an exquisite painting, and yet Su Ping had torn it into pieces. "I cannot die," Legend Pluto cried. The punch landed on him the next second. With a boom, the Nightfall Mountain trembled, from the peak to the foot of the mountain. The formerly hovering mountain was falling down. Boom! The landing of the mountain had caused a violent shake and a loud noise once again. The mountain was split due to the impact caused by the landing. Those who were previously standing on the mountain rebounded as it hit the ground. But apart from a few titled battle pet warriors, the others remained unhurt. Some reacted fast enough and took to the sky before the mountain fell. Fright was frozen on their faces as they stared at the fallen mountain. The ancient mountain that had been in the mysterious realm for countless ages was crushed. The mountain was split into many hills with the impact. The buildings and pavilions on the mountain were shattered. No one was able to utter a single word. No one could have imagined any of that. Where is Legend Pluto? Look, his pets. Soon, someone remembered to ask about Legend Pluto, but it seemed that he had been buried under the ruins. Someone noticed his battle pets instead. Those beast kings were massive. They would be easily spotted. However, equally easy to spot was the dull look on their faces. Chapter 524, Fight the Fate State. The dull look on the beast kings stunned them because they were too familiar with that situation. It was the look of a severed contract. Did Legend Pluto die? Was that punch the end of Legend Pluto? He was at the void state. How could he have died with just one move? Some legendary battle pet warriors tried to search for Legend Pluto. There were traces of him in the ruins, so they hurried over and moved the rocks and boulders away. Legend Pluto. What they saw filled them with apprehension and made their lips curl. Legend Pluto's corpse was indeed found in the ruins. His head was crushed, as well as his chest. Only his torso could be recognized, but blood and the torn skin made it too horrible for the eyes. Legend Pluto wasn't breathing. His death had been too tragic. Horrifying. People looked at the young man hovering in the air, the person who was more like a god among demons. He stood up straight, overlooking all of them. Legend North King and the bold old man were so shocked that they stared woodenly and their jaws hung low. Same as Legend Pluto, they were at the void state, and yet Legend Pluto was unable to make it through after one move. They didn't have to ponder to know how weaker they were compared to Su Ping. They had reasonable suspicion that Su Ping had already reached the fate state. After all, they had gauged the power of the punch by merely watching, and they could see the air splitting. Neither of them could have done that. Whoosh! The peaceful force field behind Legend Buddha's sound vanished. He stopped sustaining it. He was too shocked to fight against Su Ping. Legend Pluto was even more powerful than he was. He had found that out in their previous matches. However, Legend Pluto had been killed by Su Ping in an instant. Legend Buddhist Sound simply felt lucky he didn't give in to his impulses. Otherwise, people would have been digging out his corpse right then. Even if Su Ping wasn't at the fate state, he wasn't one whom they could have competed against. All the legendary battle pet warriors at the ocean state had been struck dumb. Legend Pluto, the one they had looked up to, died an instant, which was not something they could have imagined. This young man is a killer god. Huh. Su Ping stood in the air and the force field was wiggling behind him. He noticed that legend Buddhist sound had lost his will to fight. Still, Su Ping didn't relax. If anything, he was even more alerted and furious. He didn't know where the anger and alertness came from, but he couldn't stop feeling disappointed. Indeed, he was disappointed. Those were the most powerful warriors on the blue planet. However, all he was able to see were faces wearing shocked and fearful looks. Is this how the powerful people look? He clenched his fists and suddenly understood why they had not dared to go when they heard the name Otherworld Heavenly King. They were even afraid of him, one who was at the 7th rank, not to mention the Otherworld Heavenly King which was at the Fate state. He opened his mouth. Give me what I want. We won't interfere with each other from here on. The legendary and titled Battle Pet Warriors came back to their senses. The titled Battle Pet Warriors were even more panic-stricken. They had been working at the tower for so many years, and yet they had never seen anything like that. Nightfall Mountain had been standing there for ages. If people learned that it had been split, the entire world would become an epicenter. Su Ping finished expressing his mind, but no one answered. The legendary Battle Pet Warriors looked at each other speechlessly. Those at the Ocean State had placed their hopes on those at the Void State, while those at said rank were hesitating. They could have teamed up to deal with Su Ping if he were like them. Still, Su Ping had demonstrated a much more powerful strength. They didn't know what to say in reply. It would be a disgrace for the tower if they said yes and gave him what he wanted. Su Ping had created too much trouble to be let go like that. However, no one present had the capabilities to stop Su Ping. Therefore, no one had the guts to utter vicious words for fear that Su Ping's anger would be rekindled. It was evident that another round of conflict would follow if they decided to disagree. No one wanted to be the person being targeted by Su Ping. No one said a word while they were thinking about different things. Su Ping bellowed, "What? No one can make the decision here." Those at the Void State looked pale, especially under the gaze of those who were at the Ocean State. "Why don't you go and tell him?" They inwardly complained. Someone flew over from the distance while they were struggling. That noise gradually increased as he got closer and closer. They looked up. They were more than glad to see that person. Deputy Chief is here. This guy is over. He broke the Nightfall Mountain. He's doomed." Many legendary Battle Pet Warriors could not help but flash their smug smiles. They had been too afraid to breathe deeply with the mere prospect of fighting Su Ping on their own. They didn't even forget to hide their joy. They became less tense. Legend Buddhist sound. Legend North King and the others who were at the Void State were relieved. They would have also lost all of their dignity if no one in charge faced Su Ping. Su Ping turned around upon hearing the noise. The one who was on his way over was a white-haired, middle-aged man. His white hair cascaded down his back. There was indifference reflected on his face. He placed his hands behind his back. He would teleport every now and then as he flew over. He had arrived in a few seconds. Huh. The white-haired man frowned when he saw the crushed Nightfall Mountain. He looked around and fixed his gaze on Su Ping. He was surprised to see a person covered in white bones. A strange form of merging. He could tell right away that was not the normal merging because Su Ping and his pet were not integrated. It was more like Su Ping was wearing the pet. "Who are you?" the white-haired man asked in his authoritative voice. Su Ping had heard the legendary Battle Pet Warriors' conversations. "Are you the deputy chief? I'm Su Ping from the Longjiang base city. I came here to ask for an herb." "An herb?" The white-haired man frowned. The man asked coldly as he stared at the crushed Nightfall Mountain, "If so, why are you acting wildly here?" "No reason. They simply wanted to kill me so I punched back," Su Ping answered. "Nonsense." One legendary Battle Pet Warrior stood up to land the blame. "You were accusing us of not helping you defend your base city, and you came here to make trouble." "Indeed. I can prove that." "Deputy Chief, you must right this wrong for us. He has already killed 3 legendary Battle Pet Warriors, just relying on his strength." The legendary battle pet warriors piled on angrily, never mentioning Su Ping's contempt and raving words. Just the fact that he had killed 3 of their peers and friends without leaving complete corpses behind was enough to fill them with rage. The white-haired man was having a hard time believing that. He said while locking his eyes on Su Ping, "You said you're from the Longjiang base city. I have some recollection of that place." The place that the otherworld Heavenly King was about to strike was the Longjiang base city, right? We have the right to consider whether to send legendary battle pet warriors. That is our business and we have to do it voluntarily. That is not our obligation. He added, if we were willing to help, it would be because we were too kind. You could not blame us for anything if we were unwilling. Who said anything about the strong being obligated to save the weak? Right. Listen to the man. The other legendary battle pet warriors eyed Su Ping with hostility. Su Ping laughed instead of flipping out. I actually agree with you. I never said anything about you having to save us, but you've taken our money. Half of the taxes people pay every year are for you. People have squeezed themselves to save up enough money for you. You should have done something since you've taken our money. If you didn't have such abilities, then the least you could do is to listen to some teachings. Me killing them had nothing to do with you not helping us. I killed the 3 because they hated me for what I said, and I thought I didn't have the right to accuse them, tit for tat. That is my rule. If I were killing people just because you folded your hands while people were dying, well, then it wouldn't have been 3 dead bodies. Outrageous, someone yelled. The deputy chief is here. How dare you continue your arrogant way? What, are you implying that you can kill us all? Darn, this punk must be punished with death. Kill him, this vicious man is not worthy of his strength. Indeed, leaving him free and at large in the world can lead to tons of troubles. All the legendary battle pet warriors were denouncing Su Ping. Su Ping couldn't help but break into laughter. Haha, I'm not worthy of my strength. Did you give me the strength? No, I worked hard to earn it. I can lead to tons of troubles. You let the wild beasts strike us while you entertained yourselves here. Now you're talking about future troubles. What a load of nonsense. The deputy chief pulled a long face. Be aware that this is the tower, the palace with the most authority on the blue planet. You're also at the legendary rank. Have you not thought about the consequences? Su Ping stopped laughing. What? The place with authority doesn't allow for some harsh words. I'm here for that herb. Now give it to me and I'll be on my way. I will never set foot here again. You're more than welcome if you want to come after me to avenge the 3 deceased. It's not easy to become a legendary battle pet warrior, but you just had to destroy your future. I will let you go if you can take one of my moves. If you cannot, then prepare to serve at the deep caves for the rest of your life. Su Ping sneered, try me. Su Ping had already noticed that the deputy chief was at the Fate State the moment he arrived. To be honest, Su Ping couldn't have told that with his 7th rank. But he noticed that because he had seen too many legendary battle pet warriors at the Fate State. All the celestial gods in the demigod burial were comparable to legendary battle pet warriors at the Fate State. He was so familiar with that unique energy. He was able to tell right away. For Su Ping, dealing with those at the Fate State was not easy, but he wasn't afraid. He was able to sense that the deputy chief wasn't one of the powerful ones. The deputy chief was too weak in comparison. It was likely that he had just reached the Fate State and was even weaker than the otherworld Heavenly King. Outrageous. Deputy Chief, use your God Devourer to finish him. The other legendary battle pet warriors cheered for the deputy chief. He wasn't bragging. His most powerful reliance was his sword. Nothing else would matter if Su Ping could withstand that one strike. The deputy chief didn't say anything in reply. He opened up 2 swirls and from them hopped out 2 beast kings at the void state. One of them was a dragon. That dragon was much more honorable compared to the Inferno dragon and other dragons with a titled rank bloodline. The dragon was as huge as a mountain. It flew to the deputy chief and merged with him before it landed on the ground. The deputy chief grew by several times, reaching close to 8 meters. Golden dragon scales covered his skin and his eyes also turned golden, full of majesty. He waved his hand and grabbed a white sword from the void. The sword was 3 meters long, mounted with 7 skulls. The sword cast 1,000 beams the moment the deputy chief took hold of the sword. His force field appeared. There were figures of deities moving about in that force field. He gave off such a sacred feeling that people couldn't even look at him. Su Ping put on a serious face as the deputy chief was gaining momentum. He took precautions. His force field began to spin, and some of the faint demons became clearer. At the moment, the two of them stood in the air, but they seemed to be like a demon and a deity facing each other. One of them was a god giving out radiance, and the other one was a demon that could swallow all light with a weeping fiend behind him. Flames burst out from the sword the deputy chief was holding. That was a sword that could cut up everything and anything in the world. Su Ping's eyes reddened. He could feel his skin splitting. He perceived the smell of death, but that stimulation made him all the more craving for that smell. Roared. A demon crawled out from the force field behind him and wrapped itself around Su Ping. Su Ping's vigor grew instantly. A second demon came out and entangled Su Ping. Su Ping's strength grew again with the two demons' help. The deputy chief's pupils contracted wildly. He poured all of his energy without hesitation and focused his mind on the sword. Boom! The sword was drawn, time and space shivered. Twisted marks appeared in the air. All light vanished as if the sun had fallen. Su Ping shouted and unleashed his fist of exorcist. The massive golden fist whooshed out, and the majestic skeleton king behind him punched out from his throne. Boom! Heaven and earth quivered. The sword and the fist bumped into each other. All sound in the world died down. A booming noise came out. The glaring light ate up everyone's sight. Some titled battle pet warriors felt a pain in their eyes. Some of their eyes even began to bleed. Even the legendary battle pet warriors had to use their hands to shield the light. After the glaring light came tides of energy that were burning hot, pushing everyone backward. Boom! A noise that echoed in the sky lingered in the mysterious realm. That noise lingered for a long time. Everything settled down after who knows how long. Those present could not wait to refocus once they regained their eyesight. What they saw came as an astonishment. Su Ping and the deputy chief were still standing in the air, both of them. They saw that the young man was covered in blood. The deputy chief was not any better. His white hair was gone, all gone. There was blood at the corner of his mouth as well. Su Ping breathed deeply. There was pain everywhere. He wasn't hurt because of what the deputy chief did to him, but because he had overexerted himself. He was merely at the 7th rank. He had to leverage the little skeleton and the force field to withstand a strike from a warrior at the Fate state. The deputy chief was eyeing Su Ping with disbelief. The hand he had used to hold the sword was shivering, and his arm was numb. That energy passed down his arm to his entrails. He felt the astral powers inside him were boiling, making him want to puke. This young man survived my strongest move. Even the 4 heavenly kings would have been badly mauled. The deputy chief realized that Su Ping was seriously wounded, and he seemed to have been already injured before. Finish him. He wielded his sword again. The sword was shining with boundless radiance. Huh. Su Ping looked at the man standing opposite of him. Coldness appeared on his face. The deputy chief had said that he would let him leave after one move, but he was wielding his sword again. He was cutting the weeds and digging out the roots. Su Ping couldn't even believe that such a nobleman would break his promise. You are not worthy enough to kill me. Su Ping was swept by a wave of anger. He had one more item from the old Dragon King that he could use, an item that could send him to a random place, but the item could only be used once. He did not use it when he was fighting the Otherworld Heavenly King. Back then, he could have been sent away from the Longjiang base city, although the base city would have been destroyed, except from his store. Even if in the end the Heavenly King stepped into the bounds of the store and was killed, the Longjiang base city would still be gone. Su Ping would have hated to see only his store survive. After all, he loved and cherished many customers and friends who lived in the base city. The other titled and legendary battle pet warriors were surprised to see their deputy chief draw his blade again. Some were happy, while some were less so. All of a sudden, people heard a sigh. Let's stop right there. It seemed that the sigh came everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Chapter 525, Leaving. That voice startled the legendary battle pet warriors. The chief. Has the chief finished his cultivation? The legendary battle pet warriors that had joined the tower ages ago eyed the void around them with astonishment. The chief was, without a doubt, the single most powerful man on the blue planet. The chief would stay in closed-door cultivation quite often. It was strange that he would come out this day. Was he disturbed by the noises here? The legendary battle pet warriors who had joined the tower in the recent century didn't recognize the voice at first. The senior's exclamation solved their confusion. It never occurred to them that they would see him that day. They had heard so many stories about that mysterious chief, but never met him in person. Chief. The deputy chief, who was still preparing his strike, put away his sword. He turned to face a location in the void. Eventually, he cupped his fists and said, "Master, you have finished cultivating." Master. Many legendary and titled battle pet warriors alike were surprised by that salutation. The chief was the deputy chief's master. But the members with the most seniority of the tower were not as surprised. They were all conscious of how stunning the chief was and the relationship between the chief and the deputy chief. Bezeezing tilde. There were ripples in the air, and from the ripples stepped out a middle-aged man wearing a white robe. The middle-aged man's eyes were as deep and pure as the stars. He wore his black hair down, like a man from ancient times, standing in the air barefoot, and everything about him said he was a refined gentleman. Su Ping looked at the man. There seemed to be white lotuses blooming around him in the void. That purity could settle the mind and calm down violence. He felt the anger in his heart had faded away. Peak of the fate state, Su Ping squinted his eyes. He was of a steady mind since he was still merged with the little skeleton and was unafraid of any space confinement. He could leave. Chief. The legendary battle pet warriors bowed with the utmost respect. They were all at the legendary rank, but they could not compare to the chief. The head of the tower glanced over. He couldn't help but feel sorry for the destroyed Nightfall Mountain, which brought him to a sigh. His gaze lingered on Su Ping for a moment and realized something strange about him. "Sir, I can feel your breath of life. You seem to be young. Are you in your 20s? The titled and legendary battle pet warriors turned to Su Ping in disbelief. In his 20s? Seriously, this young man is not as old as he looked, is he? Su Ping kept a straight face. You can sense the breath of life. I think you're getting the hang of manipulating time. You're not that far away from the star rank, are you? The chief was surprised that Su Ping knew this. I wonder which rank are you at? The onlookers were completely dumbstruck. Su Ping said that the chief was reaching the star rank, and the chief had to ask about Su Ping's rank. Was he clueless? Is this young man at the same rank as the chief? But isn't he just in his 20s? How could a person reach the legendary in his 20s? Su Ping replied with a wordless snort. Asking about a man's cultivation rank was as stupid and impolite as asking a girl's age. The deputy chief scolded Su Ping, "Mind your manners." Su Ping looked at him from the corner of his eye. "What's wrong with my manners? He's your master, not mine. You should mind your own. You and I are not that close." "You," the deputy chief was furious. Su Ping said nothing else to the deputy chief. He was stopped by the chief when he was preparing his second strike. Su Ping was unable to pretend that didn't happen. Revenge was out of the question at the moment. He would have to solve the issue sometime in the future. The chief lifted his hand to stop the deputy chief from uttering another word and cast a warning glance at him. That glance drove away all the rage on the latter's face. He had always respected and even feared his master. The chief must have already been there when he got out. He was just hiding in the dark to see how the deputy chief would deal with the matter. And yet, the deputy chief failed to notice the chief. Were they really so different? He remembered what Su Ping said early. The star rank. That was a rank that was too far to reach for legendary battle pet warriors. However, the one that could make that breakthrough would be valued even in the Interstellar Federation. I'm Jai Yuanfeng, how should I address you? The chief was very nice to Su Ping. Many legendary battle pet warriors were baffled by that friendly attitude. Some that were going to tell Su Ping off had to stop. My name is just Su Ping, nothing unusual. Su Ping was able to tell that the chief didn't mean him ill, but he didn't let his guard down. The deputy chief was also an esteemed member of the tower, and yet he broke his promise in public. One's status had nothing to do with one's character. Jai Yuanfeng nodded. You've created a good deal of troubles for us. Do you want to join us or leave? I'm here for the herb. I hear you have the soul nurturer. Give me that and I will leave. Thanks for the invitation, but no. Jai Yuanfeng wasn't surprised to hear his refusal. Go and get the herb for Mr. Su, he said to the deputy chief. The deputy chief couldn't believe what he had heard. Nor could the legendary, entitled battle pet warriors. Give Su Ping the herb. Was the chief not going to hold Su Ping accountable for killing 3 legendary battle pet warriors and destroying the Nightfall Mountain? The chief wished to speak further but stopped on second thought. He was able to notice that Su Ping still held a grudge against him. He would be a menace down the road if he were allowed to leave. Master, Jai Yuanfeng looked at him. You promised that you would let him leave if he could withstand one strike. As the deputy chief of the tower, you must deliver your promise. The deputy chief felt embarrassed as if the chief would have slapped him right on the face. He replied with a yes and left. Since the deputy chief didn't object, no one else voiced opposing ideas. Su Ping remained silent. He had been prepared to barge into the vault and grab all the treasures and herbs if they weren't going to give him the herb. He had his storage space, the scroll, and the item that the old Dragon King had given him. He could plunder away all he wanted, but that would mean that he would have to pay a heavy price and his life might be endangered. Also, he wasn't sure he could succeed while Jai Yuanfeng was present. He would be more certain if the deputy chief were the only strong one to beat, since he was weaker than the otherworld Heavenly King, a beast kind he had chased away. There was a chance that he could end the deputy chief's life. A moment later, the deputy chief came back. He threw a black box to Su Ping. Su Ping took it over and opened it quickly, clearly nervous. There was a half-transparent herb that was giving off a grayish hue. He could even see through the herb. Is this the soul nurturer? Su Ping wasn't sure because he had never seen it before, but he had a hunch that it was the real thing. There were rich anima and aura of the dead in the herb, and the two coexisted in harmony, which was miraculous. Zai Jinshui and Qin Duhuang flew over. Zai Jinshui looked over and nodded. Yes, this is the soul nurturer. Su Ping nodded. What a relief. He said to Jai Yuanfeng, I'm a man of black and white. I'll take this and I owe you one. In the future, if the need arises, you can find me in the Longjiang base city. Of course, don't come if it's too troublesome. You know what to do. Jai Yuanfeng smiled. You're welcome. This herb doesn't belong to me but to one of the legendary battle pet warriors you killed. You owed him one if you owe anyone anything. Su Ping snorted. I would snatch it from him. I would be okay with that. But you're giving this to me, so I must say thank you and I won't forget your kindness. Jai Yuanfeng eyed Su Ping with interest but offered no reply. Okay, I'm off. Su Ping put away the soul nurturer and turned away to leave. Zai Jinshui followed him. He was only there to guide Su Ping. He would never go back to the tower again. It never occurred to him that going there to asking for an herb would lead to the death of 3 legendary battle pet warriors, including Legend Pluto. That was a massive damage. Not even the beast strikes at the Longjiang base city had cost the lives of many legendary battle pet warriors, and still, 3 perished that day. It was funny how things worked out in life. However, Zai Jinshui wasn't judging Su Ping. He would have also vented his anger if he had Su Ping's might. What the legendary battle pet warriors did was just exasperating. "Mr. Su, wait up." Qin Duhuang approached him. Su Ping was baffled. "What do you think you're doing?" Qin Duhuang first smiled at Su Ping before he turned on his heels and bowed to Jai Yuanfeng. "Chief, I'm Qin Duhuang and I have just joined the tower, but now I've decided to quit. Of course, you can find me if the tower needs me for something like guarding the deep caves in the future. I will still do what my obligation dictates me to do. I hope you can allow that, Chief." "Of course," Jai Yuanfeng nodded. It was unexpected to see Jai Fengyuan agreeing so readily. He was more easygoing than he had thought. He bowed to the chief again and went after Su Ping. "Mr. Su, I'm going to follow your directions now." Su Ping looked at him but flew away without saying anything. The legendary battle pet warriors were not happy about letting the man leave, but they had to make way for him. All the legendary battle pet warriors wore bitter looks as Zai Jinshui, Su Ping, and Qin Duhuang left. An outsider had gone to the tower to swagger around and was allowed to leave just like that. The legendary battle pet warriors were still full of indignation, but didn't show it. Jai Yuanfeng suddenly smiled as he watched Su Ping leave. What an adorable little guy. His smile vanished when Su Ping was no longer in his sight. He looked around. Is what the young man said true? Beast strikes taking place. What are you still doing here then? Who can explain? They were drenched in a cold sweat. It implied that the chief had already been there, and he knew everything. So he had given his silent consent when Su Ping killed the 3 legendary battle pet warriors. What a terrifying realization. Our forefather gathered all the powerful battle pet warriors on the blue planet when he built the tower, hoping to be a guard for the whole world, Jai Yuanfeng said coldly. The blue planet is a primitive planet that has been abandoned by the Federation. If we don't save ourselves, who will? What? Are you waiting for more spatial cracks or the things to crawl out from the deep caves? Those people out there are weaker than you, but they are our hope, our future. Who is to say that there won't be a second forefather among them? The young man who came today is a miracle. Who can say for sure that there's not another one like him in the base cities that have been destroyed? Fearing and trembling, no one said a word. Voy. Yeah. The deputy chief's expressions changed as well. He realized that the chief was surely using the situation to set things in order at the tower. Jai Yuanfeng glanced over the legendary battle pet warriors, and all of them lowered their heads. He shook his head. He knew that talking would not do anything sometimes. Everyone had their own philosophies and talking would not change that. Organization could only come after rules and orders were in place. The Otherworld Heavenly King, Longjiang Base City. Jai Yuanfeng stared at the cloudless sky, worried. Suddenly he realized that he might have forgotten something. The Otherworld Heavenly King was in the Longjiang Base City, so was the Longjiang Base City safe or not? I think that young man should be able to keep the base city safe, he said to himself. If he couldn't, then the Skywalker should have solved the problem. Anyway, was I wrong? The young man is in his 20s at the 7th rank. A strange guy. Chapter 526, Realms of Dragons. With no one standing in their way, Su Ping, Zai Jinshui, and Qin Duhuang exited the mysterious realm that housed the tower. As he stood on the chilly snow-capped mountain, Su Ping turned around and gave one last look at the tower. He had gradually pushed aside that disappointment in his heart. One had to rely on oneself while living in that world. It wasn't good to always wait for others to aid them. Su Ping summoned the dark dragon hound, which then took its dragon form. Zai Jinshui and Qin Duhuang jumped up. The team flew away from the snow-capped mountain. Su Ping took out the soul nurturer from the black box, once they were outside the tower's sphere of influence, and summoned the Inferno Dragon soul. The soul was as thin as a mist, and it was likely to disperse at any minute. There was a golden hue around the soul. It was the divine energy that was protecting the soul. Su Ping had thought about what he should do if he would have been unable to find the soul nurturer. He would have taken the Inferno Dragon's soul to the demigod burial in order to have it rest in the spring found in Joanna's castle. The divine energy would sustain the soul as well, but it wasn't the best solution. Zai Jinshui and Qin Duhuang were still full of complicated emotions as they stared at the half-transparent dragon's soul. They had exhausted their words. They had been reading reports when Su Ping was in a coma. They had found out that the famous Inferno dragon had met misfortune in the battle, died in the hands of the heavenly king of Otherworld. Fortunately, the dragon's soul was quite resilient and didn't vanish then, which created hope for reviving the Inferno dragon. That was why Zai Jinshui was willing to put aside all of his work and head to the tower with Su Ping. He wanted to make it up for him. To a large extent, Su Ping had the main credit for the survival of the Longjiang base city. Thanks were very much in order. The soul nurturer reacted when the Inferno dragon's soul came out. The plant began to produce a dark mist that surrounded the dragon's soul. According to what he perceived from their bond, Su Ping was able to tell that the Inferno dragon was feeling quite cozy. The soul shrank and snuck into the root of the soul nurturer to float around inside, absorbing the energy to refine itself. Su Ping was happy to see that the soul nurturer was working. But making the dragon's soul last longer with the soul nurturer was just a temporary fix. He had to find the dragon origin that the system had mentioned to revive the Inferno dragon. Only then would he rest easy. Zai Jinshui was also glad that the Inferno dragon's soul became stabilized. Looking at the splendor of the snow-capped mountain flashing past his sight, Zai Jinshui could not help but exclaim, "From today on, the taxes that would send over to the tower will be given to you, Mr. Su. You will be the Longjiang base city's guardian." Su Ping shook his head. "Save that money for base city's infrastructure. If you do find you eventually find trouble because of having more than enough money to put to good use, try to reduce the tax so that people can have an easier life." The government's tax income was quite high every year, amounting to several billion, to say a general figure. Su Ping was not in need of money that he couldn't convert to energy points. He would not find anything to spend the money on. He was a person that was not interested in money, or spending money for that matter, because it became a boring activity. Zai Jinshui gazed at Su Ping to make sure that he was not joking. He could not help but get emotional. He was aware that Su Ping treated his pet store business quite seriously. He was always cautious and thorough in all his dealings. He had even made an enemy out of the Liu family in the beginning, and they competed fiercely. However, when he decided to offer that massive sum of money to Su Ping, the latter had declined. Zai Jinshui was convinced that Su Ping was a person that loved money. He wouldn't have done many crazy things for his pet store if it were otherwise. So why the refusal? Zai Jinshui could not figure it out. Su Ping's rejection not only surprised Zai Jinshui, but also Qin Duhuang. He looked at Su Ping, not finding any words to say. Su Ping was looking at the dragon soul inside the soul nurturer with a tender gaze. He patted the herb, pretending he was patting the Inferno dragon. There was a time when he was able to place his hands on the Inferno dragon, but the soul was the only part remaining. The once easy display of affection had turned into an impossible task. People didn't know what they had until they lost it. That is how it had always been. Su Ping put away the soul nurturer in his storage space, so that the Inferno dragon could rest easy inside. They traveled in haste, reaching the Longjiang base city within half a day. Su Ping flew back to his store. Zai Jinshui and Qin Duhuang bid farewell, because they both had their own work to attend to. Su Ping didn't invite them into his store before they left. He went back inside after he called back the dark dragon hound to his contact space. Zhang Lingtong and Tang Ruyan were sitting in the store, agitated as they waited. They didn't think that Su Ping's trip to the tower would be a promising one. Admittedly, sometimes, girls had good instincts. The two girls were alerted when someone entered the store. They gladly saw that it was Su Ping. "Sir." Zhang Lingtong ran to him gaily. Tang Ruyan's greeting arrived at a close second. She, too, hurried over to see Su Ping. She sized him up and down and turned pale to see so much blood on him. "What did the legendary warriors of the tower do to you?" Tang Ruyan asked. She was rarely that angry. Zhang Lingtong had finally noticed what was off about Su Ping. "Sir, you're seriously wounded. I'll go and find you a healer." She didn't even reach the end of her exclamation when she turned on her heels and began to run. Su Ping grabbed her by the arm. Grumpily, he said, "What healer? We have the best healer in the store." "What?" Zhang Lingtong was baffled. She darted a questioning look at Tang Ruyan. Tang Ruyan immediately realized that Su Ping was not talking about them, but Joanna was rarely with them minding the storefront. Joanna is a full-time employee. That legendary rank girl was quite mysterious. She even knows healing skills. She is indeed older than I am, Tang Ruyan thought. After all, one would need time to master too many things. "I'm okay. There were some arguments, but all the problems were solved." Su Ping gave a summary of the events because he didn't wish for the girls' worry over his welfare. Their worry, as far as he could tell, was quite sincere. As his student, Zhang Lingtong was rightfully worrying about him. But why Tang Ruyan? She was his captive. Had she been staying with him for too long that she developed the Stockholm Syndrome in the end? Well, on the other hand, Su Ping wasn't treating Tang Ruyan as his captive, but his friend. What argument? With the tower? Tang Ruyan could not help but press him for more information. If his time at the tower had been unpleasant, then it couldn't have been some simple argument. There had to be some serious troubles. The tower was the most powerful force on the blue planet. When the tower sneezed, even an ancient family like the Tangs would tremble in fear. The tower represented a force that could topple and wipe out any other faction. Therefore, many families would send some of their members to serve under the legendary battle pet warriors and to collect first-hand information. Tang Ruyan could not help but feel low. Unfortunately, her connections with the Tang family no longer existed. She could have used her identity as the fake family head and find out what had taken place in the tower through her family's channels. Su Ping shook his head. He was unwilling to share more. "I have other things that I need to do now. Go and tell my mom that I'm back. Tell her not to worry." Zhang Lingtong nodded. She remembered something. "Ah, sir, your father is finally at home. I heard that he has just returned from the sea." Su Ping was surprised. The father he had yet to meet was back. What a strange feeling to see his father, but Su Ping shook his head. "I will visit them later. Please tell them that I'm back on my behalf." He wanted to revive the Inferno Dragon as soon as he could to lift the burden in his mind. Zhang Lingtong nodded in agreement. "No problem." Su Ping patted her head. Then he went to the pet room and closed the door. At the pet room, Joanna was sitting inside one of the nursing pens, cultivating. She opened her eyes when Su Ping entered. "The tower you visited didn't want to give you the soul nurturer?" she asked, because she noticed the blood which was offending to the eye. Su Ping shook his head. "They did give it to me, but there were some complications in the process, but it's all in the past now." Joanna offered no comment. "I'm visiting the realms of dragons to find the dragon origin so I can revive the Inferno Dragon," Su Ping said to Joanna. "I will still leave the store in your hands." "Should I go with you?" asked Joanna. Su Ping shook his head. "My death can be reversed, but yours cannot." Joanna would die for real in cultivation sites other than the demigod burial, unless she visited the cultivation sites as part of the employee benefits that the system could give her. If she was rated as an outstanding employee, the system would provide her with such a benefit, where Su Ping was able to use energy points and buy revival chances for her. However, Joanna had not been an employee for long to gain enough points. Be careful. Joanna thought of that strange revival ability Su Ping had. Suddenly, she laughed at herself for worrying about nothing. Reviving a dragon would be child's play for the mysterious and terrifying existence hiding behind Su Ping. After all, the pets had been revived countless times in the demigod burial. That existence had to be trying to test Su Ping by not reviving the dragon right away. Joanna shook her head. She didn't want to dig deeper because she could hardly figure out anything about that existence. Su Ping pulled up the list of cultivation sites and searched for realms of dragons. He realized that the number of dragon realms was beyond calculation. The Elder Realm of Dragon, Advanced Cultivation Site. The Mighty Realm of Dragons, Advanced Cultivation Site. The Realm of Heaven Expansion Dragons, Advanced Cultivation Site. Archean Realm of Dragons, Top-Level Cultivation Site. Chapter 527, Father and Son. There were other, less advanced dragon worlds. The Realm of Flame Dragons, Middle-Level Cultivation Site. The Realm of Eight-Winged Sea Dragons, Middle-Level Cultivation Site. The Realm of Purple-Blood Dragons, Middle-Level Cultivation Site. Su Ping browsed through the list. The diversity of those realms confused him. He asked the system, "There are so many of them. Which one should I choose to find the proper dragon origin?" That, the system replied, "Each dragon realm has its own type of dragon origin. Dragons have too many branches and they are ancient creatures. The number of major branches goes as high as 4829. Your Inferno dragon is not from one of the major branches. It's an offshoot of the major branches, so it doesn't have a realm of its own. The Inferno dragons are mainly found in the realm of Purple Blood Dragons, the middle-level cultivation site." Su Ping had seen that name a moment before. "So, if I can find the dragon origin in that realm of Purple Blood Dragons, I can bring the Inferno dragon back to life." "That is correct." Su Ping immediately pulled up the information about the realm of Purple Blood Dragons. It said in the introduction that the most powerful creatures found there were at the star rank. Most of the dragons thriving in that environment were at the legendary rank, the void state and the fate state. That gave him great pressure. Su Ping didn't find it surprising, though. In the demigod burial, an advanced cultivation site, those at the star rank were everywhere, and there were even gods of a tier above the star rank. Su Ping decided to go at once. "I suggest you get 1,000,000 energy points before you go," the system warned him. Su Ping had just remembered that he would have to spend energy points to get to a cultivation site. He was in too much of a hurry to keep a clear mind. He pulled up the interface, which quickly stunned him speechless. He had spent many energy points to breed beast kings, back when he was preparing to deal with the otherworld heavenly king. His remaining energy points were merely a few hundreds of thousands. That was more than enough for the admission to the cultivation sites, but he would need much more for revival chances. "How long can the soul last with the soul nurturer?" Su Ping asked. 30 days. Su Ping was a bit relieved. That was ample time. He would be able to take a break and get ready. After all, he would have to face immense dangers in the dragon realms, especially when Joanna was unable to go with him. He closed the list and left the pet room. Tang Ruyan was the only one left in the store. She was surprised to see him coming out already. "I thought you said you had things to do." To that question, Su Ping was unable to offer an explanation. "Where is Zhang Lingtang?" he asked instead. "She went to tell your parents about your return." "Oh, get ready. We're going to open for business later," Su Ping said. Tang Ruyan gazed at him. The fact that he was still in the mood to open the door for business relieved her mind. It seemed that Su Ping's mood was recovering. She nodded. "I will go and get ready, but you should know that the business is not very good these days. You know, many families are dealing with funeral arrangements after the strike." She stole a glance at Su Ping. Su Ping nodded silently in a grave mood. He left the store and headed home to meet the father he had never seen before. Once he reached the house, he happened to run into Zhang Lingtang by the door as she was exiting the house. She, too, was surprised to see Su Ping, who had just told them he would be occupied and would not have time to meet his parents. "Why is he back so soon?" "Sorry." "It's okay, go and play." "Sure, what?" Su Ping stepped inside, leaving behind a completely baffled Zhang Lingtang. He had already noticed the unfamiliar presence in the house. People were talking in the living room. He slowly went over. By the table sat a middle-aged man with thick whiskers. He had a withered and wrinkled visage. The tan on his face indicated that he worked under the sun quite a bit. Su Ping's mother had said that his father made a living as a seaman. Su Ping could even perceive the smell of the sea on him. In that day and age, being a seaman was a fatal career. "Oh my, you're back." Li Qingru, who was facing away from the door, turned around and happened to see Su Ping, which filled her with a pleasant surprise. However, the blood on Su Ping's shirt rendered her pale with fright. She left the dough she was making, dashing over at the speed of lighting, and said while feeling quite upset, How? Are you okay? I will go in and get you a healer." She was so worried that her mind was not functioning correctly, making her stutter. The middle-aged man who was sitting by the table turned around, alerted by his wife's panic. He also ran to check Su Ping after a momentary pause. "Ping, are you okay?" He placed his hands on Su Ping's shoulders. What a pair of warm and strong hands. Soon he noticed something that relieved him. "Come over and sit down. Take your shirt off. How did you end up like this?" Su Ping didn't struggle as his father dragged him to the couch. Su Ping had pictured many times how he and his father would meet, but he had never pictured an encounter like that. His father was nervous and worried. The familiar bond instantly brought them close together. "I'm okay." Su Ping just let his father help him take off his shirt so that his mom and dad could see that there was no wound. It would alleviate their worries. Li Qingru was evidently surprised when she failed to find a single injury on Su Ping. "What's with the blood? Is it not yours?" Su Ping wanted to say that the blood was his, but the injury was not external. But he couldn't have said so. There were things in the world that could not be explained. "Don't worry, I'm fine," Su Ping said. He looked at the flour dough and thought of a way to shift his mom's attention. "Are we having flour dough for dinner tonight?" "Who has flour dough for a meal? Your dad is baking, so we're having dumplings." "That's nice. What's the filling? Leek and pork?" "Of course." Su Ping smiled gladly. Good, the topic was changed, but his father was still staring at him. He stared at Su Ping closely. That was a complicated look that said he missed him, that he admired and was proud of his son for being brave, and felt sorry for his absence in the family. He had so many mixed feelings. "I've heard about what you did from your mom." Su Yuanchen took a deep breath. "I didn't expect that so many things would have gone down while I was away. You're my good son, Ata boy." Su Ping smiled. "You said you were going to be away for a while, so I have to step up as the only man in the house." Su Yuanchen patted Su Ping's hand but said nothing else. Some things didn't have to be explicitly expressed. "Let's go upstairs and have a talk when your mom prepares the flour dough for us," Su Yuanchen said. Li Qingru rolled her eyes. "Why do you have to speak behind me? Is there anything you can't let me know?" "We're having a conversation man to man." "You're not a man yet," Su Yuanchen answered. Li Qingru rolled her eyes again. "Don't think you can shirk the responsibility of chopping the pork responsibility. That is your job." "Of course," Su Yuanchen answered with certainty and went upstairs with Su Ping. They went to Su Ping's room. Su Yuanchen looked around his son's bedroom and saw a poster with a very curvy and well-developed lady on it. Su Yuanchen cleared his throat. "Listen, I understand you're in the prime of your youth, but don't stare at such posters for too long. It's not good for you." Su Ping was speechless. "Prime of my youth. I haven't recovered from my fight against the otherworld when I got into a fight with the tower again. I am far from being at the prime of anything," he said to himself. "I didn't know that the last time I was home was almost the last time I would get to see the Longjiang base city." Su Yuanchen heaved a sigh. He gazed at Su Ping and said, "I heard that you're at the legendary rank and the Longjiang base city survived. Thanks to a large part, you defeated that beast king. You are a hero now. Someone has to stand up in the face of danger. I didn't have much of a choice." Su Ping sat down on his bed, sighing. Su Yuanchen gazed at his son for a while, which ended in a chuckle. "When I get back to work, I can tell my buddies in the sea that my son is a hero that saved the Longjiang base city. Believe me when I say that they're not going to be convinced." Chapter 528, Seeing the Lightning Rat Again. Su Ping was curious. "What do you usually do when out at sea?" "Our job," Su Yuanchen answered with a smile. "As seamen, we sail out on the ships and search for rare and wanted materials in the sea. You must know that there are spatial cracks in the barren areas, but you may not know that you can also find those cracks in the sea. Of course, you won't see many people fighting and contending over things in the sea with so many wild beasts out there. Whoever finds the materials will be the rightful owner. You can collect and pick up anything you find inside those spatial cracks in the sea. Naturally, the inside can be quite dangerous. You may even find beast kings inside some of those cracks. That is when people need us, the professionals, to probe. And how do you do that? It's a job that needs a lot of devotion and special care. We may use some pets with temporary contracts. A seaman would go in if there are no pets available. Ay. Su Ping was at a loss for words. Sea explorations could be fatal. What did his father mean by saying special care? Su Yuanchen went ahead and shared other seamen's stories and described some of the strangest spatial cracks he had seen. Su Ping listened with rapt attention. His father made understating comments of his adventures, but Su Ping was able to grasp the sinister nature of the job. At times, he felt scared for his father. They were approaching the end of the topic when Su Ping threw out another question. From what you told me, I can tell that the more powerful you are, the better it is when being a seaman. Why is it that common men work on the sea as well? The reason for that particular question was that Su Ping failed to detect any signs of astral powers on his father, who was not a battle pet warrior, just a common man. What you said is not only a rule for seamen but all occupations. However, those at higher ranks would prefer not being seamen. Why not choose to make some easy money on land? Only those whose lives valued little would take up a job as seamen. Of course, they would be the ones with the guts to do the job, answered Su Yuanchen. There are different levels of us seamen. Battle pet warriors are senior seamen, and people like me who are in charge of transporting materials are just average seamen. Su Ping answered with momentary silence. Right then, his mother went upstairs to call them and have them help with the dumplings. Su Yuanchen went downstairs with Su Ping. Su Yuanchen wore an apron and went to the kitchen to chop the pork while Li Qingru washed up the vegetables. Su Ping sat in the living room, watching his parents at work. What a nice and warm image. And yet, something was lacking. Upon further thought, he realized that his bullying candidate wasn't there. He wondered how she was doing at the academy. Su Ping shook his head. Soon after, the dumpling filling was ready. His parents made the dumplings while Su Ping sat there, waiting for the meal. They made quite a few dumplings. His mother cooked a serving for Su Ping and Su Yuanchen, then she went back to cook her share. The father and son pair sat down by the table, eating and chatting. Su Yuanchen asked things about his son, for example, when he had awaked, and how he had been able to reach such a high rank. Su Ping made up an excuse, but he was afraid of being found out because he had a feeling he would not be able to fool his father as easily as his mother. He wondered if his father had bought his story. The lucky thing was that Su Yuanchen was not a battle pet warrior. He might know a thing or two about battle pet warriors, but he was a layman nonetheless, which created a chance for Su Ping to make up a story. The TV was on. Suddenly, the news report interrupted Su Yuanchen and Su Ping. That was the Longjiang Base City's official TV channel, which would always report authentic news. Since it was an official channel, it didn't need to broadcast fake news to garner attention. There were images of other base cities on the TV at the moment. The Jinghai Base City was one that was neither far nor too close to the Longjiang Base City. It was closer to the sea, though. The ship that Su Yuanchen had boarded to return had been moored at the Jinghai Base City's port. The Jinghai Base City was also under attack and had actually been breached. The images of collapsed residential buildings, debris, and deformed and bloody remains of the wild beasts were being shown on screen. There was a beast king among the wild beasts striking that base city. Even though there was merely one beast king, the threat was fatal for the Jinghai Base City, which was a Class B base city. Fortunately, many from other base cities went to help. While the Jinghai Base City had been breached and the casualties were many, the Beast King didn't wipe out the base city completely. Apart from the Jinghai Base City, two other base cities were under attack. One of the two suffered a sad tragedy. The aerial photo showed that 1/3 of the base city had been destroyed. No building remained standing, as if a tank had rolled over the base city. Su Ping suddenly lost his appetite after looking at all that mess. He remembered the hellish scene outside the Longjiang base city. Their base city had survived and the wild beasts didn't breach the city. Still, the casualties were just as great as in any other base city. He did help, but the number of wild beasts was simply massive. He had driven away the leading beast kings. However, the remaining wild beasts had been enough to topple any base city. The 5 major families and reinforcements who had traveled from other base cities made grave sacrifices just to protect the base city. They only won because they had outnumbered the wild beasts. It's not safe out there. Su Yuanchen heaved a sigh. He took a couple of more dumpling bites and shook his head. To that Su Ping replied with silence. He remembered what he had heard about the deep caves in the tower. He didn't know the details. However, the appearance of the otherworld Heavenly King and the simultaneous strikes on several base cities told him that things had started to go haywire. Apart from the 3 base cities that had already been struck, 2 base cities had been surrounded by wild beasts. A reporter was interviewing a government official at one of the base cities. Am I confident? This is not a time to talk about confidence, but the Hancheng base city is more than prepared to fight until our last breath. We have detected the presence of 2 beast kings. We earnestly ask for outside help. Honorable titled battle pet warriors, please come and help us out. The people of the Hancheng base city will never forget your kindness. Su Ping wondered if the tower would send reinforcements to the Hancheng base city, when no beast kings like the otherworld Heavenly King was there. The tragic images and the memory of blood spilled outside the Longjiang base city made Su Ping want to immediately leave and help out those base cities. After a moment of silence, Su Ping finished his dumplings and went back to his store without lingering further at home. At his store, Su Ping noticed that all of those waiting there were old acquaintances. They greeted Su Ping at once. Their eyes were filled with admiration as they looked at him. His name had been heard all across the Longjiang base city in the 2 days that Su Ping was in a coma. After the battle, people saw how the city had been defended. Those who hailed from the 5 major families had fought while disregarding their own safety. The volunteering titled battle pet warriors from other base cities charged wildly against the wild beasts. The one who stood out the most was Su Ping, whose fight with the Heavenly King had been earth-shaking. Su Ping had become a household name during the next-to-last beast strike. This time, he had become even more famous. People knew that it was because of Su Ping, the 5 major families, and those who had arrived from other base cities that the Longjiang base city was still standing. Su Ping returned their warm greeting before he went to a corner and called a friend, Venerable the Blade. Mr. Su, what's up? Venerable the Blade didn't expect a call from Su Ping. Su Ping heard the whistling wind. Where are you? Do you have time to come over to my store? I'm on my way to the Hancheng base city. Mr. Su, what is the matter? Venerable the Blade asked. I said I would give you a gift after the battle if you came to help us. You must be going to help fight the wild beasts at the Hancheng base city. My gift can be of assistance to you, answered Su Ping. Mr. Su, you're also aware of what is going on in the Hancheng base city. No problem. I'm on my way, Venerable the Blade said. After the call ended, Su Ping called Wu Guansheng, who was teaching Su Lingyu healing skills. He had agreed to travel to the Longjiang base city to lend a helping hand. Mr. Wu, thank you for what you did for the Longjiang base city. When you're free, come over to my store. I have a gift for you. Mr. Su, you are very welcome. I would go even if you didn't ask. I'm at the Jinghai base city right now. Many battle pet warriors and their pets are waiting for me to treat their wounds. I will stop by your store when I have time. Wu Guansheng was glad since he was surprised to receive a call from Su Ping. Su Ping remembered the news he saw. He nodded, even though Wu Guansheng was unable to see him. He went back to the counter to receive his customers after he took care of the calls. Truth be told, Tang Ruyan could have easily taken care of those customers for him. His presence was only needed when the customers required professional training. Those recurring customers had gone there multiple times, but their wealth didn't allow them to choose the professional training. The beast strike had also sabotaged the economy, which was felt by everyone. In addition to the general public, even the rich households were in danger of bankruptcy. Some companies that were involved in import-export businesses had suffered greatly when the Longjiang-based city had decided to close its borders to heal. Su Ping took the customers' orders and saw each of them to the door after the customers thanked him for what he did for the Longjiang-based city again. Su Ping went back inside, which seemed quite empty after the customers left. The battle had affected his store as well. Many repeated customers were not in the mood to train their pets at the moment. Su Ping wondered if he should contact Qin Du Huang and ask the 5 major families to stop by and show some support to his business. That way, he would be able to collect enough energy points to revive the Inferno Dragon and upgrade his store as soon as possible. While he was thinking, he heard something outside the store. He saw something familiar. Something, not someone. A chubby little mouse. That purple fur told Su Ping that it was a lightning rat. But that one was quite chubby. Its master had fed it well. Su Ping recognized the look in the lightning rat's eyes at once. He had trained the lightning rat. It was Su Yanying's pet. The next second, Su Ping turned ghastly pale. He was able to sense that the lightning rat had no master. He could sign a contract with it. That pained Su Ping's heart. A thought came to his mind, but he brushed it away and hurried to where the lightning rat was. The little beast was squatting on the staircase, looking around, confused. Su Ping moved closer. The lightning rat had recognized Su Ping as well. Memory clips were surging back in the lightning rat's mind. Its hair stood on end. The lightning rat showed its teeth at Su Ping. How surprising. After all that time, the little guy had not been freed from that trauma. He patted the lightning rat's head. "What are you doing here? Where's your master?" The lightning rat wanted to move away from the patting, but it was also wary of something at the same time. The lightning rat eventually allowed for Su Ping to pet it. Nevertheless, sparkles of electricity were dancing around and it was still showing its teeth. And yet the lightning rat came to a sudden stop, and its hair softened down as Su Ping posed those questions. The sparkles of electricity died down. The little critter looked at Su Ping, baffled. Su Ping's heart skipped a beat. The lightning rat looked around and struggled away from Su Ping's hand. It turned around, gazing at the street, trying to find something. Su Ping was in a daze. There was a shadow cast over his face, hiding his expressions. "Where is this pet from?" Tang Ruyan was surprised to see the lightning rat. Zhang Lingtong went out with her. She was quickly able to tell something was off with the lightning rat. "I don't think it has a master. Is this a lightning rat? I'm detecting a horrifying level of lightning energy inside it." "No master. Is it a wild beast?" "No, that isn't right. See the necklace. This lightning rat must have a master," Tang Ruyan stated after a close examination. Only then did Su Ping notice the necklace hidden by the purple fur. The pendant was a silver heart. Su Ping reached for the necklace, but that action riled up the lightning rat. It jumped back at once and showed its teeth at Su Ping again. This time, the lightning rat didn't hide its ferocity. The surging lightning energy from the lightning rat was truly strong. Both Tang Ruyan and Zhang Lingtong were stunned speechless by that level of energy. Tang Ruyan remembered something. She recalled that there was a girl who would leave a lightning rat for training many times. She realized something that made her face turn cloudy. Su Ping was not offended by how hostile the lightning rat had become. He didn't try to reach for the pendant. He was able to see the word yin engraved on the silver pendant after crouching down. "Are you here to wait for your master?" Su Ping clenched his fingers. He was certain that Su Yanying would never give up the lightning rat, her most powerful pet, unless something had happened to her. Su Ping remembered when Su Yanying and Yi Hao had stopped by to say goodbye before the battle. Never did he think that it would be the last time he would say anything to Su Yanying. Su Ping bit his teeth. He was willing to go and confront the otherworld heavenly king because he didn't want to see anything happen to his friends, his customers. And yet, he had failed to protect all of them in the end. The lightning rat glared at Su Ping for a moment. The lightning rat calmed down since he didn't take further action. The chubby rat jumped here and there, looking around, waiting for something. But the street was empty. There wasn't even a single pedestrian. Su Ping suddenly took out his phone and he found Yi Hao's number. He called at once. The busy tone seized him with tension. He was worried that he was going to hear something he didn't wish to hear. But soon, the call was picked up and it was indeed Yi Hao who answered. Mr. Su. Su Ping was relieved. You said you would join the fight. How is Su Yanniang? He received no reply. That last kindling of hope had died down. Chapter 529. Selling the Swamp War Crocodile. He found out the answer from Yi Hao. Su Yanniang, the girl who had been his first customer, was gone. Su Ping had missed her memorial which had been held when he was in a coma. Su Ping could hardly believe it. Life was so vulnerable. He found no words to describe the sadness in his heart. He had encountered so many deaths and seen so much blood. Still, when the passing was of someone he was familiar with, it was such a distressing feeling. He still remembered that the girl had strived to become an explorer, to make money, to better support her family so that they could move to the uptown area, leaving the shantytown area behind to enjoy a better life. The lightning rat he had trained for her had represented hope for a better life. She had such a promising future in front of her, and all of it had been ruined in a beast strike. The lightning rat was still looking around, sitting on the staircase. Su Ping had understood why the lightning rat would be there. It didn't find its master. The lightning rat thought that its master would go there and pick it up again if it went back to the store. The lightning rat was unaware that its master had bid the world goodbye. The pet's wait would not be rewarding. Su Ping crouched down and patted the lightning rat's head. The lightning rat turned around at once. It showed its teeth and pushed away Su Ping's hand. The dancing sparks showed that it was hostile to him. Su Ping didn't mind the numb feeling on his hand. As he gazed at the lightning rat, Su Ping said, "Your contract has been broken. You have no recollection of your past life. Do you even know who you are waiting for?" The lightning rat shot him a fierce look. Since Su Ping didn't mean ill by his actions, it calmed down a bit. The lightning rat seemed to be confused by Su Ping's question. The lightning rat gradually became sad. The pet was hardly able to tell where the sadness came from. The lightning rat looked intently at the street. All the lightning rat understood was that it felt someone important would show up. But it had no idea what that person looked like. Maybe it would be able to tell if that person appeared. The lightning rat nimbly jumped onto the dragon statue, paying no regard to the overwhelming pressure coming off from the dragon statue. It found a spot and crouched down, gazing, waiting. Su Ping felt his heart hurt so much that he could hardly breathe. He didn't understand why the lightning rat was acting like that after the contract had been broken. But he knew that the girl the lightning rat was waiting for was not coming back. "How about you stay with me from now on?" Su Ping slowly fed the lightning rat his idea through a message from his consciousness. The lightning rat's ears twitched, but it did not look at Su Ping. The lightning rat kept on staring at the street, and it seemed as if it had integrated with the dragon statue. Su Ping said no more. He understood what the lightning rat wanted. A battle pet warrior could have many pets, but a pet could only have one master. Su Ping remembered his inferno dragon as he looked at the lightning rat, remembering how, drenched in blood, the inferno dragon put itself in front of him, and how it had proudly shouted that it would never fall while it stood in front of its master. Su Ping clenched his fist and went back to the store. "Sir, the lightning rat." Zhang Lingtong moved her lips. She was interested in that masterless lightning rat and wanted it as her pet. Su Ping was able to guess what she was thinking. He also knew she couldn't have tamed the lightning rat by force. He had trained it so well that it was at the peak of the 7th rank, and the thunder flash enabled it to survive even while facing 8th rank wild beasts. See? No one below the master level would be able to tame the lightning rat. Let it stay. Later buy some pet food that a lightning rat would like in some store, Su Ping replied. Zhang Lingtong said, "Oh," after a long while, but she thought of another question at once. "Sir, we have a pet store. I think we have herbs that lightning rats like in our store." Su Ping curled his lips. Of course he knew that, but those herbs were for sale only or for pets he had contracts with. However, without a master, the lightning rat wouldn't have a way to pay for the food. Therefore, he would have to buy food from another pet store. "Just do what I said. Don't ask questions," he said grumpily. Zhang Lingtong had indeed complied. She could sense that Su Ping's mood had taken a blow. The disaster that happened to the Longjiang base city had to be the reason. Zhang Lingtong had seen the mess left behind by war for the first time, all during the past 2 days that Su Ping was in a coma. She had seen many people wandering around the streets who had been rendered homeless. The lack of emotion on those people's faces had touched her greatly. "Consider it done," she said. Soon after, a person whooshed over. Venerable the Blade entered the store. He saw Su Ping and the 2 girls at once. He nodded to the girls and said to Su Ping, "Mr. Su, here I am." Su Ping had felt him traveling before he entered the store. "I know that you're going to the Hancheng base city, so I won't waste much of your time. I have a pet I can sell to you. Do you want it?" Su Ping asked. A pet? Venerable the Blade didn't expect that Su Ping was intending to sell him a pet. "Yes, the swamp war crocodile you met in the battle," Su Ping explained. Even though the swamp war crocodile was a powerful pet, Su Ping had intended to sell it. He could only sign a slave contract with the swamp war crocodile. This would not allow him to take it to a cultivation site to train. The swamp war crocodile was destined to reach the peak of the ocean state unless the swamp war crocodile was so intelligent that it would make a breakthrough by itself. Since the little skeleton had recovered, Su Ping was no longer in need of the swamp war crocodile. "Do you mean that beast king?" Venerable the Blade opened his eyes wide in astonishment. Tang Ruyan and Zhang Lingtong were not any less shocked. Both of them knew the pet's name, but neither expected that Su Ping would give away such a powerful beast king. Su Ping said he was selling it, but considering the price, he was practically giving away an invaluable beast king. "Yes," Su Ping nodded. "It can be of assistance to you during your trip to the Hancheng base city." Venerable the Blade stared at Su Ping, his mind blank. He could not, for the life of him, anticipate that the gift Su Ping had mentioned was such a generous one. A beast king. Venerable the Blade had witnessed how the crocodile defeated 2 wild beast kings by itself during battle. The crocodile would be one of the most ferocious ones. But Su Ping was willing to sell him that beast king. "The price is about 200 million. Do you want it?" Su Ping asked. Venerable the Blade came back to his senses, but he was thrown into astonishment once again by the price. 200 million. "Mr. Su, do you mean billion?" 200 million for that beast king. That was a beast king. That amount was nothing when compared to the worth of a beast king. He would have bought it even if there were 2 extra zeros at the end, even if that meant that he would have to spend his life savings. After all, the possibility of having such a beast king as a pet was, to be sure, small. He would have never gotten one if he intended to capture one by himself. He would have to pay a legendary battle pet warrior to help him capture one. But to pay a legendary battle pet warrior, he would have to spend at least dozens of billions. 200 million, Su Ping repeated himself. Su Ping wasn't even in the mood to make jokes because of what had happened to the lightning rat. "If you want it, transfer the money and you can have it now." He had merely signed a slave contract with the swamp war crocodile. Canceling that contract would not leave him vulnerable. "Yes, of course, yes," Venerable the Blade shouted at once. Only a fool would say no to buying a beast king at the cost of 200 million. That gift had touched him deeply. He would have never imagined that Su Ping was talking about handing him a beast king as a gift. Venerable the Blade gazed at Su Ping. He had been working alongside Yuan Tianchen for years. All he wanted was for Yuan Tianchen to give him some inspiration so that he could reach the legendary rank. Yuan Tianchen would be able to help him capture a beast king so that he could be a match for those at the legendary rank. However, while Yuan Tianchen had indicated that he would catch a beast king for Venerable the Blade, the former had never put that promise into practice. But for the day, Venerable the Blade would be getting one from Su Ping, a violent one at that. Mr. Su. Venerable the Blade wanted to express his thanks, but was unable to utter those words. He could not summon the courage to say thank you. Su Ping was fully aware of what Venerable the Blade was thinking. He patted Venerable the Blade's shoulder and said, "We are friends, so you don't have to say anything. You deserve this because you risked your life at the Longjiang base city, but I do have some small strings attached." Venerable the Blade replied in a hurry, "Mr. Su, you name it. You cannot abandon it when you reach the legendary rank, and you can only cancel the contract after keeping it for 10 years. If you want to cancel the contract earlier, after your rank becomes much higher, you must come to my store and cancel the contract with me as a witness. Can you promise me that?" UITIS. Venerable the Blade couldn't believe it was such a trivial matter. He had thought Su Ping was going to ask him for something more important. "Of course," Venerable the Blade answered without hesitation. "Mr. Su, you flatter me. This is a beast king we are talking about. Even if I were at the legendary rank, I would have to rely heavily on it, not to mention that I have such a long way to go to reach the legendary rank. I cannot even find where I should start at the moment. Maybe that will never happen to me." He was telling the truth. He was still young and could very likely reach the legendary rank, but he had seen so many talents who reached the peak of the titled rank very early in their lives, but failed to reach the legendary rank toward the end of their lives. They could only die in old age and regret. That was just one rank up, but hope would never be found if one couldn't find the right direction. "You can do it. Don't be discouraged," Su Ping encouraged Venerable the Blade. Venerable the Blade answered with a smile, "Should I transfer the money now?" "Yep." "No problem." Venerable the Blade wired Su Ping the money at once. He was sure that Su Ping was not deceiving him, even though he had not seen the battle pet yet. For the first time, the ringtone of money entering his account didn't sound so pleasant. The swamp war crocodile was not his battle pet, technically, but he felt a bit sad considering they had fought alongside each other. Su Ping heaved a sigh inwardly. He went outside and summoned the swamp war crocodile. Roar! The swamp war crocodile had a body that seemed to be cast in gold. Each of its scales was telling how violent it was, and a cold glare bounced off from the scales. The swamp war crocodile was so huge that it almost filled up the street. Although it wasn't the first time he had seen the swamp war crocodile, Venerable the Blade was not any less astonished than before. He had seen how Su Ping rode on the swamp war crocodile, but this day, that beast king was going to become his battle pet. With a glow in his eyes, Venerable the Blade eyed every inch of the swamp war crocodile. Su Ping went up and patted the Venerable the Blade. He said goodbye on his mind. The swamp war crocodile groaned. A glint of sadness rose in its eyes. The next second, Su Ping cut off the contract. As the contract disappeared, the confusion in the swamp war crocodile disappeared. Something was missing in its mind. Some shackles broke. The swamp war crocodile felt liberated. It could not help but cry into the sky. Roar! That roar was heard within a large area. Countless people were alerted, afraid that more wild beasts were coming. However, some of the repeating customers of the store were relieved once they recognized that the source of the noise was from the Pixie Pet store. As if the roar came from the store, then the beast was probably Su Ping's pet. Even if it were not his pet, he would have killed any intruding wild beast king. Outside the store, Su Ping said to Venerable the Blade, "You can sign the contract now." The roar made Venerable the Blade's blood boil. He could not wait but step over and sign a contract with the swamp war crocodile. The store's power contained the swamp war crocodile, which tried to resist Venerable the Blade's intention. The contract was finished smoothly. As the mark of the contract submerged into both their foreheads, an ancient link appeared within them. The swamp war crocodile quieted down. The bond of the contract meant that the swamp war crocodile could remain loyal to its master, and it would only want to hurt its master if its master had done something outrageous. From now on, you will be my partner. Venerable the Blade patted the swamp war crocodile's scales tenderly. The bond of the contract told Venerable the Blade that this battle pet had a lonely soul. But from that moment on, such a lonely soul would be guarded by him. The swamp war crocodile lowered its head and groaned as a reply. Su Ping was glad that the contract had been established. Take good care of it. I will. Venerable the Blade put away the swamp war crocodile. I won't waste time on saying useless words. Mr. Su, I will be on my way. Sure, Su Ping nodded. Venerable the Blade cupped his fists at Su Ping and flew away. He summoned a flying battle pet and vanished into the horizon. Su Ping took his eye off from them. With Venerable the Blade and the swamp war crocodile, the Hancheng base city should be saved unless there were other heavenly kings hiding, lurking, like the situation that happened to the Longjiang base city. Su Ping was about to go into his store when he saw that the little purple guy was still gazing at the street. Even the appearance of the swamp war crocodile had failed to distract that little guy for even a second. Su Ping went back to the store. Having sold the swamp war crocodile, the 200 million astral coins were converted into 2 million energy points. Su Ping let Tang Ruyan and Zhang Lingtong take care of the store while he went back to the pet room and tell Joanna to keep an eye on the store. Since he was going to a world of dragons, Joanna had to stay. Let's go. Su Ping pulled up the world of purple-blooded dragons and entered without hesitation. Joanna watched as the swirl in the air swallowed Su Ping. She hadn't fully believed in him when he was up, having promised that he would be able to take her to the Achaean divinity. She didn't fully believe him. But as time moved along, she was convinced that Su Ping would be able to deliver his promise. It was just that she had not gained enough points yet. She had become anxious to make more points. In the world of purple-blooded dragons, in a dark brown rocky jungle, with a whoosh, a tiny figure suddenly appeared and fell on the rock like a tiny ant. Su Ping looked up and around. Was that the world of purple-blooded dragons? A world of dragons? When Su Ping was looking around, he heard a reckless dragon roar suddenly coming from a distance behind a huge wood forest, a roar loud enough to shake the void. In the next moment, Su Ping saw a huge dragon with a body of several hundred meters soaring out from the giant wood forest in the distance. A pair of huge wings were spread out, covering the sky and blotting the sun, casting down a large shadow. Su Ping saw that in the dragon's mouth there was a dragon's head, dripping blood. Chapter 530, 3 Abilities Dragon Mountain. Dragons feed on dragons. Su Ping could not believe what he had just seen. He quickly raised his astral shield as blood dripped down so that it wouldn't fall on him. Otherwise, the smell of blood on him would invite unwanted troubles. As if feeling an energy disturbance, the huge dragon with a small dragon's head in its mouth turned its eyes down. A tiny figure leaped into the dragon's sight. The dragon looked away and flew out of there. Did the dragon just find me? I don't think it was interested in me. What a relief. He was able to tell that the dragon was as overwhelming as the otherworld heavenly king. It had to be at the fate state. The otherworld heavenly king might even be weaker than the dragon. After all, dragons were the top creatures among all creatures in the world. Su Ping looked around. He was at a complete loss. Now tell me, how large is the realm? Where should I find the dragon origin? He had to speak up after some time passed, since the system didn't seem to detect his thoughts. The system does not provide GPS inside the cultivation sites. The host shall explore all by his lonesome. The system didn't hesitate in the slightest when it turned Su Ping down. Su Ping was speechless. He thought about it. That was a realm of dragons, but the dragons found there were generally of high rank. Those that had reached the legendary rank would have learned the language of other species. He could communicate with those dragons. He would probably find out where he should go if he asked around. He jumped down from the rock he was standing on and hurried toward the forest from where that dragon flew out from. The rocks and trees were so large that Su Ping felt he was like a puny insect found in the distant past. Soon, Su Ping found some dragon footprints and smelled the pungent odor of their droppings. Su Ping followed the traces of those footprints and the droppings in the forest like an experienced hunter. He saw some remains along the way. They had been left in the wild unattended. The flesh had been bitten off, leaving weathered bones. That primitive feeling stimulated Su Ping. He was constantly at the ready. Not long afterward, Su Ping suddenly saw a huge monster with extremely thick, yet proportionately thin legs, like steel needles. The wings on the back of that insect-like creature were translucent. With several blood-red eyes, the insect was extremely horrible, and the whole body exuded a fierce and bloody smell. The strange insect noticed Su Ping and flew towards him as if he were its prey. That creature was several meters long. It wasn't surprising that it would hunt a game like Su Ping. It approached Su Ping, leaving behind a very lifelike virtual image of where the insect was. Su Ping was almost fooled by this. Su Ping summoned the little skeleton as the insect moved closer. Instead of merging with the little skeleton, Su Ping told it to finish the insect by itself. The little skeleton's reaction was fast. It drew its blade the moment it received Su Ping's order. After a blur, the strange insect had been halved. Blood gushed out. The strange insect was at the ocean state. While fast, it was still slower than the little skeleton. Beast Core. Su Ping dug out an energy crystal from the remains of the strange insect. The beast core was the thing that controlled energy flows inside the beast and would crystallize after some time. A beast core had a high pharmaceutical value and could also be administered to other beasts of the same family to attain stronger powers. If someone wasn't fond of beast cores, they could still be used as energy bombs. Beast cores had a lethality close to that of small missiles and could hurt 7th-rank beasts. Su Ping put away the beast core. He was going to take it back to his store to sell it. That strange insect was of the wind family, so he could sell the beast core to someone with a pet of similar stock. Su Ping continued exploring after having finished the insect. He then understood that there were other creatures in the world of dragons, but they probably weren't commonly seen. At the same time, Su Ping took his time to check the little skeleton. Su Ping had not had the time to inspect the little skeleton carefully after its recovery. He had been busy with battles and other matters. He cast an identification spell to read the little skeleton's information. Little skeleton. Property, pet of the demon family. Rank, the intermediate position of the 9th rank. Combat strength, 39. Aptitude, above average. Talent skill, elementary agility talent. Bloodline skills, Bone Demon, Eternal Revenant, Descent of the Bone King. Abilities mastered. Regeneration, Undead Enslaving, Advanced Saberplay, Puppetry, Demon Whispers, Nightmare Space, Punishment of Sins, Darkness Teleportation, Realm of Death. Su Ping was deeply impressed. The little skeleton's aptitude, combat strength, and new abilities had astounded him. The little skeleton was merely at the 7th rank before, with an average aptitude, but once it had completely consumed the blood crystal, it jumped up by 2 ranks, from the 7th to the 9th rank. It would have taken years at a normal rate for the little skeleton to climb those 2 ranks, to say the least. The more shocking thing was the little skeleton's combat strength, which was at 39. In usual cases, a 9th-rank beast would only have a combat strength of 9 points, but the little skeleton's combat strength was 39 points. Even a legendary rank creature at the void state would merely have a combat strength of 20 points. The little skeleton's combat strength was nearly double in comparison. The little skeleton had also acquired 3 bloodline skills, which came as a complete surprise to Su Ping. It was true that the pet had gained the Skeleton King's bloodline, but even the average members of the Skeleton King's family would merely have 1 or 2 bloodline skills. The extremely talented would have 3 or 4 bloodline skills. Since the little skeleton was able to acquire 3 bloodline skills, as the new bloodline had just been awakened, the little skeleton was more than gifted. No wonder its aptitude didn't drop. That was to say that, Of all the creatures with the Skeleton King's bloodline, the little skeleton was above average. Of course, it would be basically impossible for the other common skeletons to achieve such results. The little skeleton merely achieved such accomplishments because it had been trained in a special way, while leveraging the Skeleton King's bloodline. It would be like asking for the moon to have the little skeleton have such strength without the Skeleton King's bloodline. The little skeleton should be still comparable to the void state. I wonder how far away it is from the fate state, Su Ping asked himself. As of that moment, the little skeleton's combat strength was higher than Joanna. Of course, that would be the girl who was working for him, not Joanna's original self. Joanna's original self was a truly powerful being, even taking the universe as a whole, someone that Su Ping couldn't even imagine. The combat strength of her employee self was 29.6 points. The little skeleton's combat strength was almost 10 points higher. That being said, Su Ping was fully aware that his employee's major focus was on her mind. She could have improved her combat strength at any time if she wanted to. That merging must be the Bone Demon skill. Su Ping understood that the 3 bloodline skills had to be the core skills for the little skeleton. There were simple descriptions of each of the 3 bloodline skills. The first was the Bone Demon, which was the one that enabled the little skeleton to merge with Su Ping. In that state, the little skeleton would share all of its strength with Su Ping, and the pet itself would become an unbreakable armor for him. That skill didn't mean much for the wild Skeleton Kings, but it was truly meaningful for those that entered into contracts with humans. That was why Skeleton Kings were favored as battle pets by battle pet warriors at the star rank. The second bloodline skill, Eternal Revenant, would enable the little skeleton to draw dark energy from the void to recover its body, no matter how bad it had been wounded. The little skeleton would be practically unkillable. When a creature died, it would usually be pulled into the realm of the undead. But when a Skeleton King was in a fatal state, and the realm of the undead tried to suck it in, the Skeleton King would be able to draw energy from the realm of the undead and come back to life. Almost immortal. Of course, as informed as Su Ping was, he was able to tell that such a skill wasn't infallible. Some creatures were able to freeze time and space and isolate all energy. In such a case, using that skill would be more than difficult. He would rather wait for his death if he were to run into such a creature. That would make things easier for him. As for the last of the 3 bloodline skills, the Descent of the Bone King was an assault skill. Descent of the Bone King was able to summon the forefather of all Skeleton Kings and leverage the forefather's strength to wield outstanding powers. Only the forefathers of major species that had star-rank bloodlines could have created such skills, leaving such skills to help their offspring. Apart from the 3 bloodline skills, the other skills were quite stunning. The long list of new skills dazzled him. How amazing! The little skeleton had become impressive in every way after that awakening. No wonder it had attained such combat strength. It wasn't an exaggeration to say it had been blessed with too many skills. I wonder what the best of the Skeleton Kings would be like, Su Ping wondered. The little skeleton was at the 9th rank but had a combat strength comparable to the void state. As such, the pet was able to kill average void state creatures. That was shocking. Right then Su Ping heard a noise. Roar! Su Ping came back to his senses. He was bold enough to stop and check the little skeleton because he knew he could return to life at the cultivation site. That roar evidently belonged to a dragon. Su Ping took the little skeleton and found their way forward. Soon, he heard an earth-shaking noise coming from a certain point in the forest. It seemed that a battle was in progress. Su Ping and the little skeleton stole their way over. Su Ping could then see that 2 dragons were fighting. One of the dragons had purple scales, quite elegant, while ferocious at the same time. The other dragon, clearly from another breed, had dark green scales. The dragon had 2 thick legs and 4 shorter paws, but each claw was quite sharp. The 2 dragons were of different size. The one with the purple scales was more than 200 meters tall, while the other was less than 100 meters tall. Right then, while the latter was very aggressive, it wasn't gaining an upper hand in that battle. Another hunt, Su Ping was startled. The dragons were more violent than he had expected. First, he had seen a dragon eating another dragon. Then he witnessed a dragon hunting another dragon. Su Ping kept quiet. Both dragons were at the legendary rank. Su Ping was planning to wait for one of them to be defeated. He would then capture the winner to ask about the dragon origin. The battle was intense and neither dragon had noticed the uninvited party. That, or even if they had noticed the presence of a human male, they wouldn't care because Su Ping seemed to be too weak. He wasn't even at the legendary rank. Compared to the two dragons, at best, Su Ping was a puny bug. Boom! With a blast, the dragon with the dark green scales was swept away. The one with the purple scales bit the former's neck. The former let out a cry of pain. That was a cry filled with desperation, and it carried a begging tone. However, cold-blooded hunters would never let go of their game. Soon, the cry died down and the dragon with the purple scales tore off its game's head. Blood gushed out. That primitive and bloody view startled Su Ping. He lurked in waiting. That purple-scaled dragon tossed the dragon head aside and then feasted on the neck of the dragon corpse. The blood tainted its neck, its fangs, and its mouth, which made the purple-scaled dragon all the more horrifying. Then the dragon turned around toward the place where Su Ping was hiding. The dragon opened its mouth. Energy began to gather in its mouth, and the beam was aiming at Su Ping. He was not surprised. He told the little skeleton to use Bone Demon at once. Boom! An incredible blast of energy continuously surged out from Su Ping. He was getting an urge to cry into the sky, but he pushed down that desire. Red glow was bursting out from his eyes. He dashed over toward the purple-scaled dragon. The dragon was taken aback after witnessing how Su Ping had changed into a different person. The dragon appeared to be frightened upon noticing the energy bursting out from that human. The dragon groaned, as a threat in demonstration of its power. However, Su Ping was immune to the dragon's roar. He would use the roar from the Heaven Expansion Dragon as background music to relax. At the moment, Su Ping was charging toward the dragon like a bullet, and he punched with his fist of Exorcist. Boom! The purple dragon gathered its energy to fight back, but regardless of that, Su Ping landed a punch on its wing, piercing right through. Su Ping rushed on and jumped onto the dragon's neck. He placed his foot on that neck, ready to stomp on it forcefully at any time. Behave if you want to live. Su Ping sent a mental message to the dragon, carrying a cold tone. The purple dragon stared at Su Ping in fear and fury but didn't take any action. It understood Su Ping's message. He heard a message back soon after. What do you want? You can have my food. The dragon used the language of dragons, but the message was translated into the human language as it was mentally conveyed, so that Su Ping could understand. I don't want your food. Su Ping snorted. What do you know about the dragon origin? Dragon origin? That question was unexpected. Why? I see that you do know about it. Su Ping pressed the dragon. Where is it? Do you know where to find it? Show me the way. The purple-scaled dragon shouted in alarm. Dragon origin is the source for us purple-blood dragons. Why are you, a lowlife, asking about it? Purple-blood dragons. Su Ping looked at the dragon's scales and remembered the name of that cultivation site. The system had once told him that there would be a major species in each dragon realm. The purple-blood dragons seemed to be the owners of this realm. Show me the way since you know about it, or else you're going to be just like that one over there. Su Ping threatened the dragon. The dragon felt humiliated. It was cooking up a vicious plan. The dragon origin was at a place that held the utmost importance for purple-blood dragons. That person would be hurling himself willingly into the trap. The dragon swallowed down the insult and promised Su Ping, "Fine, I'll show you the way." Su Ping jumped onto the dragon's back. He turned his palm and the bone blade that the little skeleton had once picked up from the chaotic realm of the undead appeared in his hand. He stuck the blade against the dragon's back. Move it. The bone blade was much sharper than he had expected. The dark energy around the blade was able to cut through the hard dragon scales with ease. Su Ping put his hand on the handle as if it were the steering wheel. If he wanted, he could immediately cut the dragon open. After feeling that cold sensation, the frightened purple dragon flapped its wings and flew away. The dragon was only able to rely on merely one wing, since one of its wings had been broken by Su Ping. Soon after, the dragon had submerged deep into the clouds. The massive forest was becoming smaller and smaller. Su Ping was finally able to have a clear view of the realm. On the ground, in addition to the endless forest, there were winding mountains, swamps, and a primitive mountain peak standing in the forest. The whole world was barren. Wind swept across the land. Su Ping spurred the dragon forward. They soared above the exotic land. He soon heard some dragons' cries. It seemed that several dragons were battling against something and were crying for help. The dragon that Su Ping stood on was about to cry out when he snorted. The dragon felt a chill running down its spine. Although furious, the dragon did the smart thing of foregoing the idea of shouting for help. They pressed on. They passed by mountain peaks and extensive forests, including several large rivers in which some things were moving about. Su Ping had a clear view. There were some bones and remains by the side of the river. After a long while, Su Ping began to see a gigantic mountain. That was indeed a huge mountain. Even while being in that world of dragons, such a mountain was able to pierce into the clouds. Those large peaks and forests he had seen were like small blades of grass in front of that colossal mountain. Su Ping was able to feel something quite stressful coming off from that mountain. Su Ping saw that other purple dragons in the sky were also hurrying toward that mountain. "Is that where the dragon origin is found?" Su Ping questioned. The dragon answered, "That is a sacred place for us, and yes, that is where the dragon origin is found." Su Ping nodded. He gazed at the mountain for a long while. The dragon took him closer and closer to the mountain, until he was able to see the rocks and boulders on the mountain. The dragon landed by the hillside. There were many purple blood dragons gathered there, as well as other dragons, which was a surprise for Su Ping. All of those dragons were even more intimidating than the otherworld heavenly king. Su Ping had a feeling that he was standing in front of star-rank creatures. "What are the dragons doing here?" Su Ping asked. He thought he was going to see another view of a dragon eating dragons, but wouldn't the other dragons serve themselves as food for the purple blood dragons? "They're here to pay tribute, and some of the dragons are after the dragon origin like you," the dragon answered with contempt. As they landed, the other purple dragons noticed the person standing on a dragon. All the dragons became livid with rage. "How audacious! How dare you ride on one of us? What is that? Kill him!" The purple blood dragons bellowed. Dragons of other kinds eyed Su Ping in amazement. What creature would dare to ride on a purple blood dragon? The dragon that was still under Su Ping's feet cried out for help at once. "Help me! This lowlife snuck on me and kidnapped me. He's after the dragon origin." Su Ping glanced over the other purple blood dragons. All of them were at the legendary rank, but their strengths varied. He didn't wish to do things the hard way. He hopped off from the dragon, stood in the air, and cupped his fists. "I am Su Ping, a human being. I'm here to ask for the dragon origin. I hope you can let me have a share, and I'm more than willing to trade that with anything." "Shut up." A bulky purple blood dragon stepped forward and shouted at Su Ping, "You insulted one of us. And how do you even dare ask for the dragon origin? You're not worthy to speak of the dragon's origin. Guards, finish him." The other purple blood dragons were all riled up. The dragons of other kinds could not believe what they had just heard. They were dragons and they could use the dragon origin, but there was nothing about Su Ping that was even remotely connected to dragons. Why would he ask for the dragon origin? Not to mention that he had kidnapped a purple blood dragon. "Human, I think I've heard of such things. They're creatures from the past. I thought they had gone extinct." "Do you mean the vermin that were once here in the distant past?" The dragons of other kinds whispered to each other. While those dragons were quite powerful, and even more so than the purple blood dragons present, They were afraid to take any impulsive actions, and were quite respectful to the purple blood dragons.